I wanted to support my husband, even if his mom treated me poorly like a servant, and even if he didn't stand up for me. But things changed when his favorite brother got hurt and became half-paralyzed. My husband started making fun of him, and even teamed up with his mom to make fun of me. That's when I decided I wouldn't take it anymore. Holding my brother-in-law's hand, I promised to get back at my husband and mother-in-law. My name's Mia, and I live with my husband Kent while we work together. I feel really overwhelmed because I have a ton of work to do at home and with my job, and I never get any time for myself. It's because my in-laws, who live nearby, keep asking for my help. Even though my husband and I both work, he never helps with the housework. My mother-in-law treats me more like a maid than a daughter-in-law. Mia, today you need to take your brother-in-law to the hospital. My mother-in-law calls me early in the morning on my day off. I'm supposed to take care of my brother-in-law's daily needs when I'm not working. Before, I was basically forced to drive him around like a taxi, but now I'm looking after him because he's half-paralyzed. I'm always sorry, Mia, my brother-in-law said apologetically, but I shook my head. I'm doing it because I want to, so please don't worry, I replied smiling, but his expression seemed troubled. Before the accident, he was my mother-in-law's favorite. He graduated from a great university, landed a job at a big company, and was kind and gentle to everyone. It seemed like my mother-in-law only had eyes for him, as if he were her only son, leaving my husband, the second son, feeling ignored. Sometimes I got mad at my mother-in-law for treating my husband unfairly. That's why I always wanted to support him. But things changed drastically when my brother-in-law, who used to be so successful, ended up in a wheelchair after the accident. I honestly wish he'd leave already. Being disabled and unable to earn money is bringing shame to the family. My mother-in-law's words were harsh, considering all the help my brother-in-law had given us. She treated him like he didn't belong, which was incredibly cruel. And to make it worse, my husband started joining in, mocking my brother-in-law along with my mother-in-law. So he's paralyzed and can't even move a hand, huh? Doesn't matter if you went to a fancy university, once you can't walk, it's all downhill from there, right? When I thought about my brother-in-law, unable to move his legs because of the accident, I couldn't fathom how they could say such things. Unlike my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law was kind to my husband too. But despite that, my husband's remarks only made things harder for my brother-in-law. After all the hospital visits, I hope he'll move out soon. We can take care of my mom ourselves, and he's just a burden now, a disabled person who can't contribute anything. My husband's words were hurtful, and I found myself arguing with him. I reminded him of all the things my brother-in-law had done for us in the past, and that his injuries were just the result of a terrible accident. We shouldn't speak about him like that, especially since he treated my husband equally. I also opened up about how I'd been treated by my mother-in-law all this time. I endured verbal abuse and was made to run errands on my days off. But I went along with it because I hoped my mother-in-law would change her attitude toward my husband and maybe even acknowledge me a little. But no matter how much I pleaded, my husband didn't seem to understand. Since my brother-in-law's accident, my husband suddenly became the priority for my mother-in-law, who used to dismiss him. It was understandable that he'd feel happy about it, but for me, I just couldn't relate. The sudden and extreme change in her attitude was shocking. My mother-in-law was never easy to deal with, but I never expected my husband to change so drastically. Looking back, my husband often left all the household chores to me, but I believed he was making efforts in his own way. That's why his sudden change in attitude was so shocking and upsetting. One day, while feeling frustrated with my husband and mother-in-law, my husband suggested a family trip. I was thinking we could go to Hawaii for a change of scenery and have some fun, he said. As a working couple, we could afford a trip, but what about my brother-in-law who couldn't join us? Would he be left alone at home? When I voiced my concerns, I learned that a helper would be hired while we were away. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt for my brother-in-law and started worrying if I could even enjoy the trip. A little something to look forward to wouldn't hurt, my brother-in-law said a few days later, sensing my struggle with my husband's idea. I heard about the trip. Don't worry about me. Go and enjoy yourself. You've always been there for me during the hospital visits and everything else. It's time for you to relax and have some fun. His kindness touched me, and I joked that going on a trip with my husband and mother-in-law might be more exhausting than usual, which made my brother-in-law laugh. Encouraged by his words, I told my husband we should go ahead with the trip, and we began preparing for our Hawaii adventure. I took charge of planning the itinerary and dealing with the travel agency. My mother-in-law kept changing her hotel and activity preferences, making it a bit challenging to finalize the plans. But finally, 2 weeks before our departure, everything for our Hawaii trip was set. As soon as we landed in Hawaii, I made a decision to separate from my husband and mother-in-law. I had already felt used even before the trip, so I had planned for this moment. Plus, I needed some time alone, which I had been longing for since the days leading up to our departure. Most of my effort went into helping my mother-in-law prepare for the trip. I'd rush to buy the things she needed after work, and on my days off, I'd take her to the store so she could pick out what she wanted. These shopping trips with my mother-in-law would easily take up 4 hours each time. The 2 weeks before our departure were packed with this and assisting my brother-in-law with his hospital visits. Then, on the day of the trip, my husband and mother-in-law chuckled and told me, "You stay and take care of your brother." Those words left me speechless and utterly stunned. "Since I usually take care of my son, this time it's your turn. Hiring a helper costs money, but you do it for free," my husband and mother-in-law joked, laughing it off. Their demeanor left me feeling no anger anymore. They left for the airport without me, and I stood frozen in place even after their car vanished from sight. Once back home, I used the spare key to enter my in-laws' house. I found my brother-in-law lying down in the living room and told him about what had just occurred. "I'm sorry for suggesting the trip, but I never imagined it would turn out like this," I told my apologetic brother-in-law, reassuring him that this outcome was probably for the best. I hadn't expected much from my mother-in-law to begin with, but this incident also revealed my husband's true colors. I struggled to put my feelings into words, but at that point, I didn't really care anymore. As I glanced down at my brother-in-law's immobile lower body and left hand, I suddenly saw him rise to his feet. It was shocking because he wasn't supposed to be able to move like that. "What's happening? How are you standing?" I blurted out in surprise. Unable to contain my astonishment, I asked my brother-in-law, who then explained that he wasn't permanently paralyzed. It turns out he had been wanting to put an end to my mother-in-law's excessive interference for a while. He had chosen to stay at the family home because he couldn't afford to live on his own. "I'm barely making ends meet," he explained. When my mother-in-law insisted on him staying, he felt pressured to comply, fearing it might cause trouble for my husband and me. "My mother spends money recklessly. I thought my life would be ruined if things continued like this." I was naive at the time of the accident, he admitted. He had been contemplating how to break free from his mother's hold without causing issues for us. The turning point came when he pretended to be paralyzed and unable to walk. That's when my mother-in-law's attitude towards him changed. And just as he was wondering what to do next, my mother-in-law began favoring my husband. Listening to his story, I couldn't help but feel genuinely sorry for my brother-in-law. "It's really frustrating, isn't it?" I replied with a wry smile, and my brother-in-law returned the smile. "Well, shall we fight back then? What do you think? You can join in, Mia," he suggested. I had no intention of letting things end like this. This whole situation had disgusted me with my husband and mother-in-law. So of course I agreed to my brother-in-law's proposal. 1 week later, my mother-in-law and husband returned from Hawaii. As soon as they arrived home, my husband called me. "Hey, where are my things?" The apartment was empty when I got back. I explained that I had sent his belongings to my in-laws' house. "I made it so you can live with your mother like you've always wanted," I tearfully told him. But instead of understanding, he started complaining about how I moved his stuff without permission. Ignoring his reaction, I told him I want a divorce. "This is too selfish." He was taken aback, demanding to know what had come over me and who was the selfish one. Finally finding my voice, I confronted him about his betrayal of my trust and how much I had endured for him. And during the preparations for the move, even more of his wrongdoing came to light. It turns out he was secretly giving money to my mother-in-law without telling me. Looking back, my mother-in-law's extravagant shopping habits continued even after my brother-in-law quit his job. I had always assumed he was the one funding her spending, but it turns out he had significantly cut back on his expenses after leaving his job. That meant my mother-in-law must have been getting money from someone else, and the only likely candidate was my husband. "You need to repay the money you've been spending without my knowledge," I know $22,000 had gone missing in the past few months, I told him firmly. In response, my husband offered weak excuses, but nothing he said seemed to justify what he had done. Realizing that everything I said was true, he couldn't come up with any valid reasons. I informed him that my brother-in-law had already moved out, and I was living in a new place. I made it clear that neither my brother-in-law nor I wanted anything to do with him or his mother anymore. It's best for you to go live with your parents. Your family seems to only consist of your mother-in-law, right? I said before hanging up, but my husband's angry voice cut through. You're so insolent. I should have divorced you long ago, just like my mother said, he shouted. Even in that moment, he brought up his mother. Though it was my honest feeling, his words felt like a relief. His straightforward declaration of divorce was appreciated. Shortly after, a pre-filled divorce form arrived from my husband's end. I submitted it to the city office and sorted out the financial matters swiftly. Finally, I was free, but this was just the beginning. I submitted the divorce papers. I informed him over the phone. His response was curt. Now that I don't have a nagging wife and a disabled brother around, things will be much better for me. This is the best outcome, huh? He laughed. I laughed too, adding, your brother-in-law has semi-retired and is enjoying life abroad. And did you know he wasn't actually paralyzed? Oh, and your mother-in-law has some debts, so good luck with that. I thought I heard him say, huh. But I hung up, blocked his number, and decided he was just a stranger now, someone I didn't need to care about anymore. A month later, I received a letter from my ex-husband, Kent, sent through a lawyer. The letter was a mix of complaints, apologies, and an unthinkable proposal to remarry me. I'd often wish you were still with me. My salary alone can't support my mother anymore. It's impossible, he lamented in the letter. It was filled with such absurd concerns, and I could almost sense the traces of tears in his words, which made me feel nauseous. I promptly threw the letter away. It appeared that my ex-husband had lost all his assets trying to repay my mother-in-law's debts. Yet it wasn't enough, and they ended up losing the family home. As for my mother-in-law, she was desperately searching for my brother-in-law, who had gone overseas. According to my brother-in-law, she had been reaching out to his acquaintances and former colleagues. Despite her efforts, none of them intended to disclose his whereabouts. And even if she did find out, she wouldn't be able to go there. This situation was putting my second son at risk. I want to see my older son, she reportedly said, but none of my brother-in-law's acquaintances were willing to help her. It seems that life with Kent has been quite challenging for my mother-in-law since the divorce. Meanwhile, I've been enjoying a peaceful life in my new single-person apartment. It's remarkably calm compared to the chaos of before. It's been a year since the divorce, and for the last 6 months, I haven't heard a word from my ex-husband. Then today, I received an email from my brother-in-law abroad after a long silence. The email contained news that my mother-in-law had finally gone bankrupt, her name even listed in the official Gazette. Curious, I did some digging and discovered that Kent and my mother-in-law are now cohabiting in a small one-room apartment. Needless to say, they're not getting along. Kent is struggling to make ends meet and is drowning in debt, all because of my mother-in-law's uncontrollable spending habits. The sight of them disgusts me, but strangely, recalling the past doesn't fill me with anger anymore. It seems the revenge my brother-in-law and I carried out, what we called a counterattack, has had more than enough effect.
Decking out this room will be such a thrill, Mason chimed as he declared, staking his claim. You try to fuss, Ma, and you'll see me leaving you to fend for yourself. The cutting edge to his words caught me off guard. I had barely closed the front door of my modest home, where memories with my late husband lingered, when Mason began barking orders. Amber, his wife, stood in the corner, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging me. Give it a rest, Amber. We're here now? Better make the best of it, Mason said, glancing in her direction. Amber sighed, putting her phone away. I shuffled into the living room, feeling the weight of my decision. My husband had passed away just a year ago, and now I'd agreed to let Mason and Amber move in. I expected support, companionship. I didn't expect this hostility. Nora, where do you keep the good plates? Amber asked wearily, walking into the kitchen. In the cabinet above the sink, I replied, trying to keep a positive tone. Why do you need them right now? Just checking. You know, we have friends over sometimes. Don't want them eating off these cheap ones, she said dismissively, picking up one of the plates from the drying rack and looking at it critically. I bit my tongue. I wanted to protest, but Mason gave me a look that froze the words in my throat. "Amber, just leave it. We'll buy new plates if we need to," Mason said, as if I wasn't even there. The house might have been small, but it was filled with memories. Pictures of family holidays adorned the walls. I tried to remind myself that I had made this choice for the sake of family, but something in Mason's tone made me uneasy. It was late afternoon, and the sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows on the worn carpet. I eyed the dining area, already imagining the arguments yet to come. My stomach turned at the thought. "Mason, can we talk for a moment?" I asked, trying to sound assertive. "Sure, Ma. What's up?" He responded with a fake warmth, following me into the hallway. "Why the rush to claim your room? You said you needed help, and I let you move in. Show a little respect, please," I said, trying to maintain eye contact. He folded his arms, leaning against the wall. "Respect? Ma, we're here to help you out, too. Don't forget that." I nodded, unwilling to argue further. I retreated to my bedroom seat, the only place where I felt I still had control. As I sat on the edge of my bed, I looked at the framed photo of my husband on the nightstand. His kind eyes seemed to offer me strength. Amber's voice floated down the hallway, interrupting my thoughts. "Mason, how about we order in tonight? I'm not in the mood to cook." "Fine by me," Mason replied, his voice indifferent. I felt a mixture of frustration and sadness. I hadn't anticipated how disruptive their presence would be. A few hours later, the house was filled with the aroma of takeout. I joined them at the table, where Mason and Amber were already eating. "Nora, do you want some?" Amber asked, not looking up from her food. "Sure," I responded, sitting down. "So, Ma, any interesting plans for tomorrow?" Mason asked between bites. "I was thinking of visiting the market, stock up on some fresh produce," I said, hoping he might engage in a real conversation. "Amber," he interrupted, clearly not paying attention to me, "we should go check out that furniture store you mentioned." "Yes, we need to update a few things around here," Amber said excitedly. I sighed, putting down my fork. I'd appreciate if we could discuss changes before jumping into them. "Ma, we'll take care of it, don't worry," Mason said dismissively, already looking back at his phone. I felt an unsettling chill. My home, once filled with love, now felt alien. This wasn't the beginning I had hoped for. The next few days passed in a blur of tension and biting comments. Every time Amber opened her mouth, it seemed to be to criticize or demand something new. Any attempt to create harmony was met with sneers and dismissive gestures. One evening, as I sorted through some old papers at the dining table, Mason walked in, rifling through the mail. "Bills, bills, and more bills. Do you ever not get these, Ma?" he muttered loudly. "They come with living in the house, Mason," I said patiently. "It's normal." "Well, you should try and cut down on your expenses. This is starting to get out of hand," he said, tossing the mail onto the table. His tone was sharp, lacking any hint of compassion. From the living room, Amber's voice carried through. "Mason, did you forget about tomorrow's payments? You promised to handle it." Yeah, I know," he called back. "What payments are those, Mason?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Nothing you need to worry about, Ma," he said dismissively. I glanced over the documents he'd thrown. My heart sank seeing how much more they'd spent than I realized. "Mason, could you contribute a bit to the household? Money is tight," I asked, my tone hopeful. Mason didn't even look up. Sorry, slipped my mind. I'll get on it next time," he said offhandedly. Amber walked in, her face twisted in disdain. "Honestly, this place is a nightmare. So old-fashioned and depressing. How did you ever live here, Nora?" I bit back a retort and offered a thin smile. "It's home, Amber. It has history." "Well, history doesn't pay the bills, now does it?" she snapped, rolling her eyes. She joined Mason, who was now scrolling through his phone. I sighed and returned to my papers. Something caught my eye, an unpaid bill that was unusually high. I made a mental note to investigate it further. I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. The next day, curiosity got the best of me. I quietly checked Mason's office while they were out. I found unopened bills and receipts everywhere, and many were marked with overdue notices. My pulse quickened. This mess had to be cleaned up. But more urgently, I needed answers. Later that evening, I confronted Mason and Amber when they returned. "Mason, we need to talk about these overdue bills," I said, holding up the pile of papers. His face hardened. "Ma, stay out of my business. We're handling it." Handling it. This affects all of us, I retorted, my frustration bubbling over. Amber chimed in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Maybe if you didn't spend on useless things, we wouldn't have a problem. Useless? Everything I buy is for the house, I said, feeling anger rise. Sure, keep telling yourself that, Amber said, tossing her hair back. I took a deep breath. Mason, something isn't adding up. I need to know what's going on, I said more calmly. Drop it, Ma, Mason said sternly. I said we'll take care of it. That night, I lay in bed wide awake. Their behavior, the financial discrepancies, it all felt wrong. I had to dig deeper. This had become more than just a family issue. It was a question of survival. Morning arrived, and as they left for their activities, I decided to visit Mason's workplace, a small tech startup. I needed to understand more. The office was a short drive away. When I walked in, Emily Harper, a young employee, greeted me. Hi, can I help you? She asked with a friendly smile. I'm Nora, Mason's mom. Just thought I'd drop by and say hi. Emily's smile faded slightly. Oh, Mason didn't mention you'd be coming. He's out right now. I see. How is he doing here? I asked, trying to sound casual. She hesitated. He's been having some trouble. Deadlines, funds. He's under a lot of stress. I nodded, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. Thank you, Emily. Leaving the office, one thing was clear. Mason and Amber were hiding something. I was determined to find out what, no matter the cost. Mason, the internet is down again, Amber yelled from the living room. Can't you fix it? There was a crash as Mason kicked a chair. I'll deal with it later, Amber. He snapped. He stormed past me, not bothering to even look in my direction. Mornings had become a battleground. Amber's tantrums and Mason's temper made my once peaceful home feel like a war zone. It was clear they were frustrated, but their anger seemed to land squarely on me. I couldn't keep dealing with the hostility without some sort of escape, so I found a job at a local art supply store. The manager, Mrs. Harper, welcomed me with open arms. It felt good to be doing something useful for myself. One afternoon, while sorting brushes and paints, Mrs. Harper approached me. Nora, would you like to join our painting class this evening? I hesitated. I'm not sure if I'm any good. She smiled warmly. Everyone starts somewhere, plus, we could use an extra set of hands. That evening, I joined the class, and for the first time in a while, I felt genuinely at peace. I may not have been very skilled, but losing myself in the strokes of the brush was therapeutic. Returning home later than usual, I walked in to find Mason and Amber arguing. Just do something useful for once, Mason shouted. Useful? I'm doing everything while your mother is out playing with paints, Amber retorted. I'm back, I said softly, hoping to diffuse the tension. Amber glared at me. Perfect timing. We're out of groceries. Why don't you make yourself useful, Nora? I felt a wave of anger rise but held it back. I'll take care of it in the morning, I said calmly. Make sure you do, Amber muttered. The next day, I did the shopping, making sure to get exactly what they liked, to avoid more complaints. At the checkout, a canvas caught my eye. I decided to buy it, hoping to continue painting at home. When I got back, Amber was sprawled on the couch. About time, she said as I walked in with the bags. I ignored her, placing the groceries on the counter. Later, as I set up my canvas in the spare bedroom, Mason walked in. What is this? He demanded, looking at the canvas. It's for painting, I said, trying to stay composed. With what money, Ma? Don't you get it? We're struggling to keep this place afloat, he yelled. I bought it with my own earnings from the store, I said firmly. Mason shook his head and walked out, mumbling something under his breath that I didn't catch. Over the next few weeks, painting became my refuge. My work at the store and the joy of painting helped balance the growing tension at home. One evening, Mrs. Harper approached me again. Nora, I've seen your paintings. They're quite good. Have you thought about selling them? She asked. I was stunned. I haven't. Do you really think they're worth selling? Yes, I do. We can start displaying them here at the store, she suggested. I nodded, feeling a spark of hope. Maybe this could be a way out of the bleakness at home. That night, as I served dinner, Amber sniped, Honestly, you're just a burden to everyone around, an old woman who's of no use. I stopped, feeling the sting of her words, but I didn't respond. Instead, I went to my room, picked up my brush, and started painting. For every insult, I would channel it into my art. Soon, my paintings attracted attention. I made my first sale, then another. Each piece sold brought me a little more financial freedom and emotional strength. In secret, I started setting aside money, planning an escape if things worsened. Amber and Mason continued their rampage of entitlement. But now, I had something they couldn't touch, a sense of purpose and a path forward. And with every stroke of my brush, my resolve grew stronger. Selling one painting after another, I finally felt like I was contributing. But I kept my success a secret from Mason and Amber, knowing it would only cause more tension. The resentment in the house was growing thicker every day. One evening, while Amber was out, I found myself sitting with Mason over a rare shared meal. The silence was heavy, but I decided to break it. "Mason, I've noticed financial discrepancies. Something doesn't add up," I said cautiously. Mason stiffened. "I told you, I'm handling it. Stay out of it, Ma." "But it's affecting all of us. You're not contributing, and Amber seems more interested in spending than saving." I pushed, my voice steady. He slammed his fork down. "I said I'm handling it." I dropped the subject, knowing I wouldn't get anywhere with him tonight. Later, as I cleaned up, I overheard a phone conversation from Mason's office that made my blood go cold. "I've transferred the funds. Just make sure the company doesn't catch on," Mason whispered urgently. Realizing the gravity of his words, I quietly moved away. I needed proof. Over the next week, I carefully recorded any conversations that hinted at their misdeeds, using my phone's recording feature. Amber was no better. She had brought home a stack of expensive clothing and jewelry. In a moment of carelessness, she'd left receipts lying around that showed she'd used funds from my account. I decided to confront her. "Amber, these expenditures on my account are unacceptable. How could you?" She looked at me with cold disdain. "Oh, Nora, stop acting like it's a big deal. I'll pay it back." "This is theft, Amber. I want the money back now," I insisted. She smirked. "What are you going to do about it, old woman?" My anger boiled over. This isn't over. Later that day, I took my recordings and receipts to a lawyer. The evidence was clear, and I was advised to start taking steps to secure my position. Secretly, I found a modest house to buy with the money I had saved from my paintings. It was small, but it was mine. The keys to the new house felt heavy in my pocket, a double-edged sword of freedom and fear. I still needed more proof to protect myself fully. That evening, Mason and Amber were out, and I seized the opportunity to dig deeper into Mason's office. Folders, emails, and files, everything pointed to him siphoning company funds. My chest tightened, realizing the depth of their betrayal. The next morning at breakfast, Amber looked over with a sneer. "And what do you plan to do with your pathetic little paintings, Nora? Buy yourself a coffin." I shot back. "I'm making enough to move out soon. You and Mason will have to fend for yourselves." Mason walked into the kitchen, hearing my last words. "What's this about moving out?" "I've had enough. You've both been deceitful and abusive. I've found a new place," I said with a newfound firmness. Mason's face hardened. "You think you're just going to leave us? We're your family." "Family? You've done nothing but take advantage of me," I countered, my voice shaking but strong. Amber's laughter was cold. "Good luck surviving on your own. You'll come crawling back." "We'll see about that," I replied, holding her gaze. As days went by, I finalized my purchase, ensuring everything was in order to move quickly. But I wasn't just leaving. I was setting the stage to expose them. One evening, I gathered all the evidence, Amber's fraudulent activities and Mason's misappropriation of company funds. I waited until they were both home. "Mason, Amber, we need to talk," I said tersely, holding up the folder of evidence. Amber rolled her eyes. "Another one of your lectures?" Mason's eyes narrowed. "What is it now?" I opened the folder and laid the documents on the table. "This is proof that you've both been stealing and cheating." Their faces drained of color. "Tomorrow I'm showing these to the authorities. My new house is ready, and you're not coming with me," I declared, my voice steady and strong. Their protests and threats echoed as I walked away, but I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. This was just the beginning of my fight for justice, and I was ready. I spent the next few days preparing for the move, making sure everything was in place at the new house. I didn't tell Mason and Amber anything more about my plans, keeping my intentions under wraps. One morning, I packed the last of my belongings and left a note behind. It simply read, "Goodbye and good luck." I felt a mixture of relief and nervousness as I closed the door behind me. This was it, my new beginning. Arriving at my new house, I took a deep breath. It was smaller and simpler than my old home, but it felt like a sanctuary. I set up my art supplies in a corner of the living room, ready to dive into my painting again. A few hours later, there was a frantic knock at the door. I opened it to find Mason and Amber standing there, faces flushed with anger and panic. "You can't just leave. We need you," Mason shouted, his voice breaking. "This house is mine, and mine alone," I declared with a firmness that brooked no argument. Amber pushed past Mason, her eyes wild. "What are we supposed to do now? You can't abandon us," she spat. "I haven't abandoned you," I replied calmly. "You abandoned your responsibilities and proved you couldn't be trusted." Mason stepped forward, trying a different approach. "Please, Ma, let's just talk this through. We can work something out." "No, Mason. I'm done talking. I found out about the company funds you've been misappropriating," I said, watching his face pale. He started to bluster. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "And Amber, you've been draining my accounts for your own luxuries." Amber scoffed, crossing her arms. "You really think you can survive without us?" I stepped back, resolving to make my final stand. "I am surviving without you. You underestimated me, and now you're going to face the consequences." With that, I shut the door on their stunned faces, locking it behind me. I heard them shout and pound on the door, but I ignored them. This was my new chapter, and they were no longer a part of it. The next day, I contacted the authorities and provided all the evidence I had gathered. It wasn't just about my money, it was about justice and finally standing up for myself. Mason and Amber showed up at my door once more, this time pleading and promising to change. "Please, Ma, we're sorry. Just give us another chance," Mason begged. Amber nodded, tears streaming down her face. "We need you. We can't do this without you." I shook my head, feeling a strange sense of calm. "It's too late. You've already shown me who you are, and I deserve better." They left, defeated and broken. As they walked away, I felt a wave of emotions, relief, sadness, but more than anything, empowerment. In the weeks that followed, I focused on settling into my new life. My art continued to flourish, bringing in enough to comfortably support myself. Each day I felt stronger and more independent. Mason and Amber's betrayals were reported to the authorities, and they faced the consequences of their actions. It wasn't an easy battle, but it was one I was determined to see through. One evening, as I painted in the quiet of my new home, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. I had turned pain into purpose, anger into action, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a profound sense of peace. A knock on the door startled me out of my peaceful morning routine. I opened it to see Mason, looking more haggard than ever. He wasted no time pushing his way inside, eyes wild with desperation. "What do you want, Mason?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "We need to talk, Ma. You can't keep doing this to us," he pleaded, his tone urgent. Amber hovered near the door, her face etched with worry and anger. She stomped into the room, snapping, "You think you can ruin our lives and just walk away?" I walked to the kitchen counter, putting some distance between us. "You ruined your own lives with your choices. I'm done suffering for them." Mason's composure cracked. "This is all a misunderstanding. We're not the villains here." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Not the villains? You stole from me and your company, lied and manipulated. How are you the victim?" Amber's face twisted horrifically. "We took what we deserved. You owe us." "I owe you? Look around, Amber. I worked hard for this house, my peace. You belittled and exploited me. I owe you nothing." Mason stepped closer, trying another tactic. "Please, Ma, we can fix this. Just drop the charges and we'll pay you back." "Drop the charges? This is bigger than repaying me. It's about accountability. You think you can swindle your way out of everything?" I said, shaking my head. Amber's rage boiled over. "You miserable, ungrateful hag. We did everything for you, and this is how you repay us?" "Everything for me?" I shot back. "You mean everything to benefit yourselves. I've seen your true colors. Now it's time for you to face the consequences." Mason collapsed onto the couch, holding his head in his hands. "Please, Ma, don't do this. We need help. We can't make it without you." And I needed respect, dignity, and honesty. But you didn't think of that, did you? I sighed, feeling the weight of the years of manipulation lift. At that moment, the doorbell rang again. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing there. "Are you Nora Collins?" One of them asked. Yes, I am, I replied, stepping aside to let them in. Amber's eyes widened in horror. No, this can't be happening. You can't let them take us. The officers stepped forward, addressing Mason and Amber. Mason Collins, Amber Davis, you are under arrest for fraud and embezzlement. Mason's face turned a ghostly white. Ma, do something! Talk to them, he begged as he was handcuffed. Amber screamed, thrashing as they restrained her. You can't do this! We're family! I watched silently as the officers led them away, their protests echoing down the hallway. It was a heartbreaking sight, yet I felt a sense of justice being served. Once they were gone, the quiet of the house felt deafening. I walked back to my easel, picking up a brush with trembling hands. Dipping it into the paint, I tried to steady myself through the familiar motion. As I worked, I reflected on the confrontation. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and ensuring that Mason and Amber faced the consequences of their actions. Mrs. Harper had been a wonderful support through all this, offering advice and encouragement as I balanced my work at the store and the challenges at home. When I next saw her, I shared what had happened. Nora, you did the right thing. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most important changes, she said kindly. I nodded. I hope so. For now, I just want to move forward. And so I did. Each day became a step toward healing, creating new routines in my quiet, comforting home. Though the scars remained, I knew I had emerged stronger and more self-assured than I ever thought possible. The reality of Mason and Amber's arrest didn't truly sink in until I visited the police station to finalize my statement. As I walked through the cold, sterile corridors, I felt a mixture of apprehension and resolve. This was it, the point of no return. An officer led me to an interview room. Miss Collins, we'll need you to recount everything again for the record, he said, his tone professional yet compassionate. I took a deep breath and began, detailing the lies, the theft, the manipulations. For the first time, I laid everything bare without fear. My voice remained steady as I recounted each betrayal, each moment of pain, knowing this was a necessary step for justice. When I finished, the officer nodded. Thank you, Miss Collins. Your courage in coming forward is commendable. As I stepped out of the station, I noticed a familiar face in the waiting area. It was Emily Harper, Mrs. Harper's daughter. She stood up and approached me. Nora, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry you had to go through all this, she said softly. Thank you, Emily. It's been tough, but it needed to be done, I replied. Mom wanted me to check in on you. She's been worried, Emily added. Tell her I appreciate it, and I'll drop by the store soon, I said, grateful for the support. That evening, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The house was quiet, almost peaceful. I picked up my phone and called Mrs. Harper. Nora, how are you holding up? Her warm voice asked. I'm okay, Mrs. Harper. Mason and Amber are facing their consequences, I said, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. You did the right thing. You deserve peace, Nora, she reassured me. Thank you, I whispered, grateful for her kindness. The next few days were filled with legal proceedings and meetings with lawyers. I attended court sessions where Mason and Amber's crimes were laid bare for all to see. They tried to plead for leniency, but the evidence was overwhelming. After one particularly grueling session, Mason approached me in the hallway. His eyes were red, and he looked defeated. Ma, please, can't you help us? We were wrong, but we don't deserve this, he begged. I met his gaze, feeling a pang of sorrow, but knowing I had to stand firm. Mason, you made your choices. Now you have to face the consequences. There's nothing more I can do. Amber stood behind him, her defiance crumbling into desperation. Nora, please, we're family. Family doesn't do what you did. I can't help you anymore, I said quietly. As they were led away, I felt a sense of closure. This chapter of my life was ending, but it was paving the way for a new beginning. Returning home, I focused on my art. Each brushstroke was a step toward healing, each painting a testament to my resilience. The small gallery I'd created in my living room began to grow, each piece reflecting the journey I had undertaken. One afternoon, Mrs. Harper visited. She walked through my makeshift gallery, admiring the paintings. These are beautiful, Nora. You've come such a long way, she said, her eyes filled with admiration. Thank you. It's been a lifeline, I replied, feeling a swell of pride. We sat down with cups of tea, the conversation turning to the future. What's next for you, Nora? Mrs. Harper asked. I think I'll keep painting, maybe even start displaying them more widely. And I want to focus on finding peace, I said, feeling hopeful. You have a gift, Nora. Share it with the world. And remember, you're stronger than you think, she said, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. As she left, I looked around my home, filled with the artwork that had become a symbol of my journey. The past was behind me, and I was ready for whatever the future held. I had faced the darkness, and now it was time to embrace the light. Life had a new rhythm, a steadier one. The court proceedings were behind me, and both Mason and Amber were serving their sentences. There was a strange peace in the aftermath, a calm I hadn't felt in years. My little house had become my sanctuary. I spent my days painting and working part-time at the art supply store. Mrs. Harper continued to be a wonderful support, often stopping by to check on me and discuss new art supplies or techniques. One late afternoon, as I was adding the finishing touches to a vibrant landscape, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emily Harper holding a beautifully wrapped gift. "Hi, Nora. Mom and I wanted to give you this," she said, handing me the parcel. "What's this?" I asked, curious. "Just open it," Emily urged, smiling warmly. I untied the ribbon and lifted the lid to reveal an exquisite set of oil paints and brushes. Tears welled up in my eyes. "Thank you, Emily. Please tell your mom I'm so grateful." "Will do. We're both so proud of how far you've come," she said, giving me a hug before leaving. As I set up the new paints, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Answering, I heard a familiar voice. "Nora, it's Jane from the gallery downtown." Jane Taylor ran one of the local galleries and had expressed interest in my art before. "Hi, Jane. What can I do for you? I've been following your work, and I'd love to feature your paintings in an upcoming exhibit. What do you think?" she asked, excitement clear in her voice. I'd be honored," I stammered, overwhelmed by the offer. "Great. We'll finalize details soon. Prepare to showcase your talent, Nora," she said before ending the call. Hanging up, a grin spread across my face. It felt like a new chapter was opening, one where my art would finally receive the recognition it deserved. A week later, I stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by my paintings. Jane had done a fantastic job arranging the exhibit, giving each piece the space it needed to shine. Mrs. Harper and Emily arrived early to support me. "Nora, these are amazing!" Mrs. Harper exclaimed, looking around with admiration. "Thanks to your encouragement," I replied, feeling a swell of gratitude. Throughout the evening, people approached me, praising my work and asking about my journey. It was a surreal experience, sharing the story of how painting had become my refuge and my strength. As the night drew to a close, I found myself alone with Jane. "Your work resonates with so many people, Nora. You have a real gift," she said, sincerity in her eyes. "Thank you, Jane. It means the world to me," I replied, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Returning home, my heart felt light. The once heavy burden of my past had lifted, replaced by hope and new possibilities. The future seemed bright, promising new opportunities and continued growth. In the following weeks, my paintings gained popularity. I received commissions and invitations to display my work in other galleries. Each new project was a step toward solidifying my identity as an artist. One sunny afternoon, while relaxing in my garden, Mrs. Harper visited with exciting news. "Nora, the local art school wants you to teach a class. Interested?" "Teaching? I've never considered that," I replied, intrigued. "They think you'd be perfect. Sharing your techniques and experiences could inspire others," Mrs. Harper encouraged. The idea planted a seed of excitement. "All right, I'll give it a try. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity." As the days turned into weeks and months, my new life flourished. I balanced painting, teaching, and enjoying quiet moments in my garden. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer defined me. They were part of my journey, a testament to my resilience. One evening, as the sun set, I reflected on everything I'd endured and accomplished. I felt gratitude for the strength I'd found and the new path I was forging. Life was a canvas, and I was painting it with vibrant, resilient strokes, each one a testament to my journey, my survival, and my new beginnings. The sun shone brightly through the kitchen windows as I bustled about, preparing a hearty Sunday lunch for my family. The aroma of roasted chicken and freshly baked bread filled the air, and I couldn't help but smile. These moments of togetherness meant the world to me. As I set the table, my daughter Hannah walked in, her eyes red and puffy. My heart sank. Mom, I don't know how to say this, but Peter, he's been having an affair for a long time. I found out last night. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I rushed to her side, enveloping her in a tight embrace. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Tears streamed down her face as she clung to me, her body shaking with sobs. The rest of the family trickled in, their chatter dying down as they sensed the somber atmosphere. What's going on? My son Michael asked, concern etched on his face. I took a deep breath. Everyone, please sit down. We need to have a family discussion. As they gathered around the table, I held Hannah's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Hannah has just found out that Peter has been unfaithful to her for quite some time. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. My husband, David, slammed his fist on the table. That bastard! How could he do this to our little girl? Hannah's lower lip trembled. I don't know what to do, Mom. I feel so lost. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice firm. You listen to me, Hannah. You are not alone in this. We are here for you every step of the way. We will get through this together, as a family. Nods of agreement and words of support echoed around the table. Michael wrapped an arm around his sister's shoulders. We've got your back, sis. Always. As the initial shock subsided, we began to discuss the next steps. I couldn't help but think back to my own troubled marriage with Hannah's father, Richard. The countless arguments, the cold shoulders, and the constant meddling from his mother, Agnes. It had been a difficult time, but I had emerged stronger, more resilient. I knew I had to be that pillar of strength for Hannah now. She needed me more than ever, and I was determined to guide her through this storm. First things first, I said, my voice steady. We need to make sure you and the children are safe, Hannah. If Peter's behavior escalates, we'll take legal action. Hannah nodded, wiping away her tears. I never thought it would come to this, Mom. I always believed we could work through anything. I squeezed her hand again. Sometimes, sweetheart, people change. And not always for the better. But you have to remember, this is not your fault. You deserve so much better than this. As the conversation continued, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Anger towards Peter for betraying my daughter, sadness for the pain she was going through, but also a fierce determination to protect her, to help her navigate this difficult chapter in her life. I glanced around the table, taking in the faces of my loved ones. This was what family was all about, being there for each other through the good times and the bad. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that we would weather this storm together. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the kitchen, I hugged Hannah tightly. We'll take this one day at a time, sweetheart. You're not alone. You have all of us, and we will never let you fall. With those words, I silently vowed to be Hannah's rock, her guiding light through the darkness, because that's what mothers do. We love, we protect, and we fight for our children, no matter what life throws our way. As I sat with Hannah in her living room, the weight of her revelation hung heavy in the air. My mind drifted back to my own troubled marriage with Richard, and the struggles I faced with his mother, Agnes. I remember how Agnes treated me, I said softly, taking Hannah's hand in mine. She never thought I was good enough, Hannah. Agnes always picked Richard's side, no matter how much I tried. You're not going through this alone. Hannah's eyes welled up with tears. I just don't understand, Mom. How could Peter do this to me, to our family? I sighed, the memories of my own pain resurfacing. Sometimes people change, sweetheart, and not always for the better, but you have to remember, this is not your fault. You deserve so much better than this. Just then the front door opened and Peter walked in, his face etched with annoyance. What's going on here? He demanded, eyeing me suspiciously. Hannah stood up, her voice trembling. Peter, we need to talk about your affair. Peter's eyes widened and he scoffed. I don't know what you're talking about, Hannah. You're being ridiculous. I couldn't hold back any longer. Don't you dare lie to her, Peter. She knows the truth, and so do I. Peter's face reddened with anger. This is none of your business, Nora. Stay out of it. I stood my ground, my voice firm. It became my business the moment you broke my daughter's heart. How could you do this to her, to your children? Peter rolled his eyes. Oh, please, spare me the lecture. You have no idea what goes on in our marriage. Hannah's voice cut through the tension. Enough, Peter. I can't do this anymore. I want you to leave. Peter's jaw dropped. You can't be serious, Hannah. You're overreacting. I placed a supportive hand on Hannah's shoulder. She's not overreacting, Peter. She's standing up for herself, for what's right. As Peter stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him, Hannah collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I don't know what to do, Mom. I'm so scared. I held her tightly, my heart breaking for my daughter. I know, sweetheart, but you're not alone. We'll get through this together, I promise. The next day, I accompanied Hannah to her in-laws' house to break the news to Peter's mother, Elaine. As we sat in their pristine living room, Elaine's cold eyes bore into us. What's this all about? She asked, her voice dripping with disdain. Hannah took a deep breath. Elaine, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but Peter has been having an affair. Elaine's eyes narrowed. And you believe this nonsense, Hannah? Really? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's not nonsense, Elaine. Peter admitted it himself. Elaine scoffed. Well, if it's true, then you must have done something to drive him away, Hannah. A man doesn't just cheat on his wife for no reason. Hannah's eyes filled with tears, and I felt a surge of anger course through me. How dare you blame Hannah for this, Elaine? Your son is the one who broke his vows, who betrayed his family. Elaine stood up, her voice rising. I will not sit here and listen to you accuse my son of such things. If your daughter couldn't keep her husband satisfied, that's her problem, not mine. As we left Elaine's house, I couldn't shake the feeling of déjà vu. The way she had spoken to Hannah, the blame she had placed on her, it was all too familiar. It was the same way Agnes had treated me during my marriage to Richard. I turned to Hannah, my resolve hardening. We're not going to let them break you, sweetheart. You're stronger than they think. We'll find a way through this, together. As we drove home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in my daughter. She was facing her darkest hour with grace and strength, just as I had all those years ago. And I knew, without a doubt, that we would weather this storm, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. Weeks passed, and the situation only seemed to worsen. Peter had started openly dating his lover, Kate, a younger coworker, humiliating Hannah and further straining their marriage. I watched helplessly as my daughter's once vibrant spirit slowly diminished, replaced by a constant cloud of sadness and despair. One afternoon, I decided to visit Hannah, hoping to offer some comfort and support. As I walked into her house, I was greeted by the sound of raised voices coming from the living room. I cautiously made my way towards the commotion, only to find Hannah and Elaine engaged in a heated argument. You've failed as a wife, Hannah. Peter deserves better, Elaine cruelly told her, her words dripping with venom. Hannah's eyes welled up with tears, and I felt a surge of anger course through my veins. I stepped forward, placing a protective arm around my daughter's shoulders. How dare you speak to her like that, Elaine? I said, my voice trembling with rage. Can't you see how much she's hurting? Elaine scoffed, her eyes narrowing. Oh, please, Nora. Don't act like you're some saint. You couldn't keep your own husband happy, and now look at your daughter. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? I felt as if I had been slapped. The painful memories of my own failed marriage came rushing back, threatening to overwhelm me, but I refused to let Elaine see me crumble. I had to be strong for Hannah's sake. You're wrong, Elaine, I said, my voice steady. Hannah is not to blame for Peter's actions. He made the choice to betray his family, and he alone bears that responsibility. Elaine rolled her eyes. Keep telling yourself that, Nora. But the truth is, if Hannah had been a better wife, none of this would have happened. With that, she stormed out of the house, leaving Hannah and me in stunned silence. I turned to my daughter, pulling her into a tight embrace as she sobbed against my shoulder. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I feel like such a failure. I pulled back, cupping her face in my hands. Listen to me, Hannah. You are not a failure. You are a strong, beautiful woman who deserves so much better than this. We're going to get through this together, I promise. As the days turned into weeks, I watched as Peter continued to flaunt his affair, parading Kate around town like some sort of trophy. Elaine, ever the enabler, stood by his side, defending his actions and blaming Hannah for the breakdown of their marriage. I felt my resolve harden with each passing day. I couldn't stand by and watch my daughter suffer any longer. I had to do something, anything, to help her break free from this toxic situation. One evening, as I sat with Hannah in her living room, I broached the subject of separation. "Hannah, sweetheart, I know this is difficult, but have you considered leaving Peter? You don't have to continue living like this." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "I've thought about it, Mom, but I'm so scared. What about the children? What will people think?" I took her hand in mine, my voice firm. "The only thing that matters is your happiness and well-being, Hannah. You have to do what's best for you and the kids, and as for what people think, to hell with them. You have nothing to be ashamed of." Hannah nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "You're right, Mom. I can't keep living like this. I need to be strong, for myself and for Emily and Jason." I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. "That's my girl. We're going to get through this, Hannah. You're stronger than you think. We'll find a way." As I left Hannah's house that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was brewing on the horizon. But I knew without a doubt that we would weather it together, no matter what challenges lay ahead. My daughter's happiness and freedom were worth fighting for, and I was ready to do whatever it took to help her reclaim her life. In the weeks that followed, I watched as Hannah slowly began to push back against Peter and Elaine's toxic influence. Encouraged by my unwavering support, she started to stand up for herself, refusing to be a victim any longer. One afternoon, as we sat in my kitchen sipping tea, Hannah confided in me about her plan to gather evidence of Peter's infidelity. "I need to protect Emily and Jason, Mom," she said, her voice trembling. "If we do end up separating, I want to make sure I have proof of Peter's affair to ensure the kids stay with me." I nodded, my heart swelling with pride at my daughter's strength and determination. "You're doing the right thing, Hannah. You don't have to continue living like this. We're stronger than they think. We will find a way." Just then, the doorbell rang. I excused myself and went to answer it, surprised to find my sister Diane standing on the other side. "Diane, what a pleasant surprise. Come in, come in." As we settled back in the kitchen, Diane's eyes fell on Hannah, and she immediately sensed that something was amiss. "What's going on, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Hannah took a deep breath and began to recount the events of the past few months, from Peter's affair to Elaine's cruel treatment. As she spoke, I could see the anger and empathy building in Diane's eyes. "Oh, Hannah," she said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. But you know what? You're not alone. I've been there too." Hannah's eyes widened. "You have?" Diane nodded, a sad smile on her face. "Years ago, my ex-husband cheated on me. It was the most painful experience of my life. But you know what I learned? That I was stronger than I ever thought possible. And so are you, Hannah." As Diane shared her own story of betrayal and resilience, I could see the glimmer of hope returning to Hannah's eyes. She had always looked up to Diane as a mother figure, and hearing that she had overcome a similar situation seemed to give her the strength she needed to keep fighting. Over the next few days, Hannah and I worked together to gather evidence of Peter's affair. We compiled text messages, emails, and even hired a private investigator to capture photos of Peter and Kate together. It was a difficult and emotionally draining process, but we knew it was necessary to protect Hannah and the children. As we sat in my living room, sorting through the evidence, Hannah suddenly broke down in tears. "I can't believe this is happening, Mom," she sobbed. "I never thought I'd be in this position, fighting for my marriage, my family." I pulled her into a tight embrace, stroking her hair as she cried. "I know, sweetheart, it's not fair, but you're doing the right thing. You're standing up for yourself, for your happiness. And that takes an incredible amount of courage." Hannah pulled back, wiping her tears. "But what about Emily and Jason? They need their father. Am I being selfish, putting my own happiness above their needs?" I shook my head, my voice firm. "Absolutely not, Hannah. Your children need a mother who is happy, healthy, and respected. They need to see you standing up for yourself, showing them that it's never okay to accept abuse or infidelity. You're setting an example for them, one of strength and self-worth." As the days turned into weeks, I watched as Hannah continued to gather her strength, preparing herself for the battle ahead. She knew that confronting Peter and Elaine would not be easy, but she was determined to reclaim her life, to build a better future for herself and her children. And through it all, I was there by her side, along with Diane, offering our unwavering support and love. We were a team, a united front against the darkness that threatened to tear our family apart. And together, we would find a way to overcome, to emerge stronger than ever before. The day I received a frantic call from Hannah, I knew something was terribly wrong. Her voice was shaking, and I could hear the tears in her words as she spoke. "Mom, I need you to come over right away. It's Peter. He's gone too far this time." I didn't hesitate for a moment. I grabbed my keys and rushed to Hannah's house, my heart pounding in my chest. When I arrived, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. "What happened, sweetheart?" I asked, taking a seat beside her. Hannah took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I found out that Peter is planning to move Kate into our home. He wants her to live with us, to be a part of our family." I felt a surge of anger course through my veins. How could Peter be so cruel, so selfish, to not only betray his wife, but to flaunt his affair in front of his children, in the home they shared as a family? I confronted him about it, Hannah continued, her voice growing stronger. I told him that if he wants to be with Kate, he can have her, but he will not turn our home into some playground for his affair. I nodded, pride swelling in my chest. "Good for you, Hannah. You did the right thing, standing up for yourself and your children." But even as I spoke those words, I could see the fear in Hannah's eyes. She knew that this confrontation was only the beginning, that Peter and Elaine would not take her defiance lying down. And she was right. In the days that followed, Peter's backlash was fierce. He raged at Hannah, calling her unstable, unfit to be a mother. He threatened to take the children away from her, to paint her as a villain in the eyes of the court. Elaine, ever the manipulator, only fueled the flames. She whispered poisonous words in Peter's ear, telling him that Hannah was trying to destroy their family, that she was a danger to their children. I watched as Hannah struggled to maintain a sense of normalcy for Emily and Jason, even as the tension in the house reached a boiling point. She put on a brave face for them, reading them bedtime stories and helping them with their homework, all while Peter and Elaine's cruelty loomed over her like a dark cloud. But through it all, Hannah remained strong. She leaned on me and Diane for support, finding solace in our unwavering love and encouragement. And slowly but surely, I could see a change in her, a newfound resilience and determination that refused to be broken. One evening, as we sat together in my living room, Hannah turned to me with a fire in her eyes. "I want a separation, Mom. I can't keep living like this in a house filled with so much hatred and betrayal." I took her hand in mine, squeezing it tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Hannah. You're doing the right thing for yourself and for your children." Hannah nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "I know it won't be easy, Mom. Peter and Elaine will fight me every step of the way, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready to take my life back, to build a better future for myself and my kids." As I looked at my daughter, I saw a strength in her that I had never seen before. She had been through so much, endured so much pain and heartache, but she had emerged from it all with a fierce determination to reclaim her happiness. And I knew in that moment that no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter how hard Peter and Elaine tried to break her, Hannah would never give up. She would keep fighting, keep pushing forward, until she had built the life she deserved, a life filled with love, respect, and the unbreakable bonds of family. As the weeks turned into months, Diane, Hannah, and I worked tirelessly to gather evidence of Peter's infidelity and expose his true nature to the world. We knew that the only way to truly break free from his manipulation and cruelty was to reveal the truth, to show everyone the man he really was behind closed doors. It wasn't easy. Peter was clever, always careful to cover his tracks and maintain his public image as a devoted husband and father. But we were determined, driven by a fierce desire to protect Hannah and her children from any further harm. We started by hiring a private investigator, someone who could discreetly follow Peter and Kate and capture their indiscretions on camera. It was a risky move, but one we knew was necessary to build a strong case against him. As the evidence began to mount, I could see a change in Hannah. She walked with her head held high, a newfound confidence in her step. She was no longer the broken, defeated woman she had been just months before, but a fierce warrior, ready to fight for her freedom and her family. One evening, as we sat together in Diane's living room, poring over the latest batch of photos and videos, I turned to Hannah with a determined look in my eye. It's time everyone sees Peter for who he really is. He can't keep hiding behind his lies. Hannah nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. I'm ready, Mom. Let's do this. The next day, we put our plan into action. We sent the evidence to Peter's employer, his colleagues, and even his friends and family. We posted it on social media, making sure that everyone in his circle saw the truth about the man they thought they knew. The response was immediate and explosive. Peter's reputation crumbled overnight as the community reeled from the shock of his betrayal. His employer fired him on the spot, disgusted by his behavior and the damage it had caused to their company's image. Elaine, too, felt the backlash of her son's actions. Her social circle began to shun her, appalled by her unwavering support of Peter's reprehensible behavior. She was left isolated and alone, forced to confront the consequences of her own manipulation and cruelty. But perhaps the most surprising development was Kate's reaction. When the evidence of her affair with Peter went public, she panicked, fearing the damage it would cause to her own reputation. In a moment of self-preservation, she abandoned Peter, leaving him to face the fallout alone. I watched as Peter's world crumbled around him as he lost his job, his lover, and his standing in the community. A part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction, seeing him finally face the consequences of his actions. But mostly, I just felt relief. Relief that Hannah was finally free from his grip, that she could start to rebuild her life without fear or manipulation. As the dust began to settle, I sat with Hannah in her living room, holding her hand tightly in mine. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You did it. You broke free. Hannah smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. I couldn't have done it without you, Mom, without you and Diane. You gave me the strength to keep fighting, even when I thought I had nothing left. I pulled her into a tight embrace, my own tears falling freely. That's what family is for, Hannah. We lift each other up. We fight for each other, no matter what. As we sat there, holding each other close, I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges and obstacles to overcome, wounds to heal, and trust to rebuild. But I also knew that Hannah was strong enough to face whatever lay ahead, that she had the love and support of her family to guide her through. And as I looked into my daughter's eyes, I saw a flicker of hope, a glimmer of the bright future that awaited her. A future free from pain and betrayal, filled with love, laughter, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Just when I thought the worst was behind us, Elaine showed up at my doorstep, her face a mask of fury and desperation. I hadn't seen her since the truth about Peter's affair had come to light, and I knew that her sudden appearance could only mean trouble. We need to talk, Nora, she said, pushing past me and into the living room. This family is falling apart, and we need to put this behind us. I followed her inside, my guard up and my resolve firm. And how do you propose we do that, Elaine? Your son has caused immeasurable pain to my daughter and her children. There's no easy fix for that. Elaine whirled around, her eyes narrowing. Don't you dare put all the blame on Peter. Hannah played a role in this mess, too. If she had been a better wife, none of this would have happened. I felt my blood boil at her words, the same twisted logic she had been using for months to justify Peter's actions. How dare you, Elaine? Hannah has done nothing but love and support your son, even when he didn't deserve it. She is not to blame for his choices. Elaine scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. Oh, please. Hannah has always been weak, always playing the victim. It's time she took responsibility for her own failings. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, Hannah emerged from the kitchen, her eyes blazing with a fierce determination I had never seen before. Enough, Elaine, she said, her voice steady and strong. I am done letting you manipulate and control me. I am done letting you make excuses for Peter's behavior. This ends now. Elaine's eyes widened in surprise, clearly not expecting Hannah's newfound strength. Hannah, be reasonable. We need to think about the family, about the children. Hannah shook her head, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. That's exactly what I'm doing, Elaine. I'm thinking about my children's well-being, about the kind of example I want to set for them. And that example is one of strength, of self-respect, of refusing to accept abuse and betrayal. I watched in awe as Hannah stood tall, her shoulders squared, and her head held high. She was no longer the broken, defeated woman she had been just months before, but a fierce warrior, ready to fight for her happiness and her family. Elaine's face twisted in anger, her manipulative facade crumbling before our eyes. "You ungrateful little bitch. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By tearing this family apart." I stepped forward, placing a protective arm around Hannah's shoulders. "No, Elaine, you tore this family apart the moment you chose to enable and defend Peter's actions. You have no one to blame but yourself." Elaine's eyes darted between us, desperation and fury warring in her gaze. But as she looked at Hannah, at the unwavering strength and determination in her eyes, she seemed to deflate, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "Fine," she spat, turning on her heel and storming towards the door. "Have it your way. But don't come crying to me when you realize what a mistake you've made." As the door slammed behind her, I turned to Hannah, my heart swelling with pride and love. "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. You stood up for yourself, for your children. You showed her that she no longer has any power over you." Hannah smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom, without your love and support. You gave me the strength to keep fighting, even when I thought I had nothing left." I pulled her into a tight embrace, my own tears falling freely. "That's what mothers do, Hannah. We fight for our children, no matter what." As we held each other close, I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges and obstacles to overcome, wounds to heal, and trust to rebuild. But I also knew that Hannah was strong enough to face whatever lay ahead, that she had the love and support of her family to guide her through. And as I looked into my daughter's eyes, I saw a flicker of hope, a glimmer of the bright future that awaited her, a future free from pain and betrayal, filled with love, laughter, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Months had passed since Hannah's confrontation with Elaine, and life had slowly begun to settle into a new normal. With the help of Diane and me, Hannah had found a cozy new home for herself, Emily and Jason, far away from the painful memories of her old life with Peter. As I pulled up to Hannah's new house, I couldn't help but smile at the sight of Emily and Jason playing in the front yard, their laughter ringing out like music in the warm summer air. Hannah stood on the porch, watching them with a contented smile on her face, and I felt my heart swell with pride and love. "Grandma?" Emily and Jason shouted as I stepped out of the car, running to greet me with open arms. I scooped them up in a big hug, planting kisses on their cheeks. "Oh, how I've missed you two. Look at how big you've gotten." Hannah walked over to join us, her smile widening as she watched our joyful reunion. "They've been asking about you all week, Mom. They couldn't wait for your visit." I wrapped an arm around Hannah's shoulders, giving her a squeeze. "And I couldn't wait to see all of you. This new place looks wonderful, sweetheart. You've done an amazing job making it a home." As we walked inside, I marveled at the warmth and love that seemed to radiate from every corner of the house. Family photos lined the walls, and the air was filled with the delicious aroma of Hannah's cooking. We settled around the dinner table, passing dishes and sharing stories, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of deep contentment wash over me. This was what family was all about: love, laughter, and the unbreakable bonds that tied us together. As the evening wore on, Hannah put the children to bed and joined Diane and me in the living room, a peaceful smile on her face. "I never thought I could feel this happy again," she said softly. "After everything that happened with Peter and Elaine, I wasn't sure I'd ever find my way back to a place of joy and stability." Diane reached over and took Hannah's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "But you did, sweetheart. You found your strength, your resilience. You fought for your happiness, and look at where it's brought you." I nodded, my own eyes filling with tears. "Diane is right, Hannah. You've come so far, and I am so incredibly proud of you. You've shown your children what it means to be brave, to stand up for yourself and your happiness." Hannah smiled, her own tears spilling over. "I couldn't have done it without you both. Your love and support have meant everything to me. I don't know where I'd be without my family." As we sat there, basking in the warmth and love of our little family, I couldn't help but think back on the journey that had brought us to this moment. It had been a road filled with pain and heartache, with betrayal and loss. But through it all, we had held on to each other, drawing strength from the unbreakable bonds of family. Suddenly the phone rang, breaking the peaceful silence. Hannah frowned as she glanced at the caller ID, her face growing pale. "It's Elaine," she said softly. I felt a flicker of anger and protectiveness surge through me, but Hannah just shook her head, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You know what? I don't need to answer that. I don't owe her anything." With a decisive click, she silenced the phone and turned back to us, her eyes shining with a newfound strength and peace. "This is our fresh start, kids. We're going to be just fine." As I looked around at the faces of my loved ones, I knew that Hannah was right. We had each other, and that was all that mattered. The bonds of family had proven unbreakable, and together we could weather any storm that came our way. And as we sat there laughing and talking late into the night, I felt a sense of deep gratitude wash over me. We had emerged from the darkness stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. And I knew, without a doubt, that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family. I never imagined my mother-in-law's high school yearbook would upend my world, but there I was, staring at a faded black and white photo of two teenage girls, one unmistakably my mother, Helen, and the other, Beatrice, my husband's mother. They were classmates and, from the look of it, bitter rivals. "Julia, you've been up here for ages. What are you doing?" Ethan's voice drifted up from downstairs. I snapped the yearbook shut, my heart racing. "Just a minute," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. How could I tell my husband that our mothers shared a past neither of them had ever mentioned? As I descended the stairs of our cozy Victorian, Ethan's concerned face came into view. "Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile. "Not a ghost exactly, but I think I've stumbled onto a family secret." Ethan's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Ethan moved to answer it, and I felt my stomach drop as I heard Beatrice's voice. "Darling, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd pop by." She swept into the living room, her designer perfume filling the air. Her eyes landed on me, and her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Julia, dear, how quaint you look today." I glanced down at my paint-splattered jeans and oversized sweater, suddenly feeling underdressed in my own home. "Beatrice, what a surprise. We were just about to have lunch. Would you like to join us?" "Oh, I wouldn't dream of imposing," she said, even as she settled herself onto our antique sofa. "I just wanted to remind Ethan about the country club gala next weekend. You'll both be attending, of course?" Ethan shot me an apologetic look. "Actually, Mom, we have plans that weekend. Julia's parents are celebrating their anniversary." Beatrice's lips pursed. "I see. Well, I suppose family obligations must come first, even if they're not quite the same caliber of event." I felt my cheeks flush with anger. "My parents' anniversary is very important to us, Beatrice. I'm sure you can understand that." "Of course, dear," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "I'm sure it will be charming. Now, Ethan, about the new exhibit at your gallery." As Beatrice monopolized the conversation, my mind raced back to the yearbook upstairs. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her disdain for me and my family than simple snobbery. What had happened between her and my mother all those years ago? The afternoon dragged on, with Beatrice making thinly veiled comments about my background and my work at the local art museum. By the time she finally left, I felt drained and on edge. Ethan closed the door behind her with a sigh. "I'm sorry about that, Jules. You know how she can be." I took a deep breath. "Ethan, there's something I need to show you." I led him upstairs and pulled out the yearbook. As I opened it to the page with our mother's photos, Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. "Is that—" I nodded. "Your mom and mine. They went to school together." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "But why wouldn't they have told us?" "I don't know," I said, a knot forming in my stomach. "But I think it's time we found out." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Sweetie, can you come over? There's something important we need to discuss." I showed Ethan the message, and we shared a look of apprehension. Whatever was going on, it was clear that the past was about to collide with the present in ways we couldn't have imagined. The drive to my parents' house was tense, with Ethan and I lost in our own thoughts. As we pulled up to the familiar yellow bungalow, I noticed Mom pacing on the porch. "Julia, honey," she called, wringing her hands. "I'm so glad you're here. We need to talk." I exchanged a glance with Ethan before following Mom inside. Dad was sitting in his armchair looking worried. "What's going on?" I asked, my stomach churning. Mom took a deep breath. "We've been invited to a reunion party at the Holbrook estate next weekend. Beatrice is home." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Mom, I found your old yearbook. You and Beatrice went to school together, didn't you?" The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Dad spoke up. "Helen, it's time to tell her the truth." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. We should have told you long ago. Beatrice and I, we have a history. A bad one." Before she could continue, the doorbell rang. Dad went to answer it, and I heard a familiar, grating voice. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Beatrice swept into the living room, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. A little family gathering? How quaint. Ethan stood up, his face flushed. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Beatrice ignored him, focusing on my mother instead. "Hello, Helen. It's been a long time." The tension in the room was palpable. Mom straightened her spine, meeting Beatrice's gaze. "Not long enough, apparently." Beatrice's laugh was cold. "Oh, come now. Surely you're not still holding a grudge after all these years? Water under the bridge, isn't it?" "What grudge?" I demanded, looking between the two women. "What happened between you two?" Beatrice turned to me, her smile sharp. "Oh, didn't your mother tell you? She stole the love of my life right out from under me, and now history seems to be repeating itself." I felt like I'd been slapped. "What are you talking about?" "Julia," Ethan said, his voice strained, "maybe we should go." "No," I said firmly. "I want to hear this." Beatrice's eyes glittered with malice. "Your mother was always so good at playing the innocent, but she knew exactly what she was doing when she seduced Thomas away from me." "That's not true," Mom burst out. "Thomas chose me, Beatrice. He never loved you." "Lies," Beatrice hissed. "And now your daughter has ensnared my son here just like you did." I felt my anger rising. "I didn't ensnare anyone. Ethan and I love each other." Beatrice turned her venomous gaze on me. "Love? What would you know about love? Coming from this?" She gestured dismissively at my parents' modest home. Ethan stepped between us. "That's enough, Mom. We're leaving." As he ushered me towards the door, Beatrice called out, "Don't forget about the reunion, Helen. I'll be expecting you all there. It's time we settled this once and for all." The drive home was silent, the weight of Beatrice's words hanging heavy between us. As we pulled into our driveway, I finally spoke. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." He cut me off with a gentle kiss. "This isn't your fault, Jules, or your mom's. My mother, she's always been difficult, but I've never seen her like this." I leaned my head against his shoulder. "What are we going to do?" Ethan sighed. "I don't know, but we'll figure it out together." As we walked into our house, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "I'm sorry for everything. Please let me explain. Dinner tomorrow?" I showed Ethan the message and he nodded. "We need answers. All of us." I typed a quick reply. "We'll be there. It's time for the whole truth." As I hit send, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives were about to change dramatically. Whatever happened between our mothers in the past, it was clear that Beatrice wasn't going to let it go. And now, Ethan and I were caught in the crossfire of a decades-old feud. I looked at Ethan, seeing the worry in his eyes. "No matter what happens," I said, squeezing his hand, "we're in this together." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Together," he agreed. But as we settled in for the night, I couldn't help but wonder if our love would be strong enough to withstand the storm that was coming. The next evening, Ethan and I arrived at my parents' house, the air thick with anticipation. Mom greeted us with a strained smile, ushering us into the living room where Dad sat, his face etched with worry. "It's time you knew everything," Mom began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Beatrice, Thomas, and I were inseparable in high school, but Beatrice, she always wanted more." As Mom recounted the tale of their tumultuous past, I felt my heart sink. Thomas, the boy they both loved, had chosen my mother. Beatrice never forgave her. "She swore she'd make me pay," Mom said, her eyes glistening. "And now she's using you two to do it." Ethan's jaw clenched. "This is insane. My mother can't possibly still be holding on to this grudge after all these years." Dad leaned forward, his expression grave. "I'm afraid it's worse than that. We've heard rumors that Beatrice is trying to sabotage Julia's career at the gallery. My blood ran cold. What? How? Before anyone could answer, Ethan's phone buzzed. His face paled as he read the message. It's my father. He says Mom is on her way here. Now. Panic gripped me as we heard the screech of tires outside. Beatrice burst through the door, her eyes wild with fury. How dare you poison my son against me? She shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at my mother. Ethan stepped between them. Mom, stop this. You're embarrassing yourself. Beatrice's laugh was bitter. Embarrassing myself? Your precious Julia is the spitting image of her conniving mother. Can't you see she's manipulating you, just like Helen did to Thomas? I felt my temper flare. That's enough. I love Ethan, and he loves me. This has nothing to do with you or your ancient grudge. Beatrice's eyes narrowed. Oh, but it does. You think you've won, just like your mother did, but I won't let history repeat itself. She turned to Ethan, her voice suddenly soft. Darling, please, you can't marry her. She'll ruin you, just like her mother ruined Thomas. The room fell silent. I turned to Ethan, my heart pounding. Mary? Ethan's face flushed as he reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. This isn't how I planned to do this, but... He dropped to one knee, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. Julia, will you marry me? Tears sprang to my eyes as I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Ethan slipped the ring onto my finger, and we embraced, lost in our own world for a moment. Beatrice's enraged scream shattered our bubble of happiness. No, I forbid this. Ethan stood, his arm protectively around me. You can't forbid anything, Mom. I love Julia, and we're getting married. If you can't accept that, then you don't have to be part of our lives. Beatrice's face contorted with rage. You'll regret this, both of you. I'll make sure of it. With that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. In the stunned silence that followed, my mother approached us, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I hugged her tightly. No, Mom, this is Beatrice's doing, not yours. Ethan nodded, his expression determined. We won't let her come between us, any of us. As we stood there, our families united in the face of Beatrice's threat, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of our troubles. The ring on my finger, though beautiful, now felt like a target. What do we do now? I asked, looking at Ethan. His grip on my hand tightened. We fight. Together. As night fell, we made plans to confront Beatrice's schemes head-on. But deep down, I knew that our battle was far from over. Beatrice's vendetta had spanned decades. She wouldn't give up easily, and as I caught my reflection in the window, seeing my mother's features mirrored in my own, I realized that for Beatrice this wasn't just about the past. It was about destroying the future she felt she'd been denied. The morning after Ethan's proposal should have been filled with joy, but instead I woke to a frantic call from my father. Julia, it's gone. Everything's gone, he choked out. My heart raced as I rushed to dress. Dad, what are you talking about? The bookshop. We're bankrupt. I felt the floor drop out from under me. The family bookshop had been a cornerstone of our community for decades. How could this happen? Ethan drove us to the shop, his hand steady on mine. As we pulled up, I saw my parents standing outside, looking shell-shocked. The windows were dark, a stark closed sign hanging on the door. I don't understand, I said, hugging my father tightly. How did this happen so suddenly? Mom's voice was bitter. It wasn't sudden. Someone's been working against us for months, canceling orders, spreading rumors about our financial stability. A chill ran down my spine. You don't think. Beatrice, Ethan finished, his jaw clenched. Before we could discuss further, my phone rang. It was the gallery director asking me to come in immediately. With a heavy heart, I left my parents, promising to return soon. At the gallery, I was met with chaos. Our star artist had pulled out of the upcoming show, citing concerns about the gallery's reputation. As I struggled to salvage the situation, a familiar voice cut through the noise. Such a shame, Beatrice purred, sauntering into my office. It seems misfortune follows your family wherever you go. I straightened, meeting her gaze. What do you want, Beatrice? Her smile was razor sharp. To offer you a way out, of course. Break off this farce of an engagement with my son, and I'll make all of this. She waved her hand dismissively. Go away. You're behind this, I realized, fury building in my chest. The bookshop, the gallery. Beatrice shrugged elegantly. I merely pointed out some unfortunate truths to the right people. your father's outdated business model, your questionable curatorial choices. I felt my hands shake with rage. You won't get away with this. Oh, but I already have, she said, leaning in close. Face it, Julia. You're not good enough for my son or this world. Do the right thing and walk away before you drag Ethan down with you. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. Oh, and Julia, I'd hate for anything to happen to your mother's reputation. It would be a shame if certain youthful indiscretions came to light. The threat hung in the air as she swept out, leaving me reeling. I sank into my chair, my mind racing. How could I fight against someone with so much power and so little conscience? My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Everything okay? You've been gone for hours. I stared at the screen, Beatrice's words echoing in my head. Was she right? Was I dragging Ethan into a world of problems he didn't deserve? With shaking hands, I typed out a response. We need to talk. It's important. As I hit send, I felt the weight of my decision crushing me. I loved Ethan more than anything, but could our love withstand the storm Beatrice was unleashing? And more importantly, did I have the right to ask him to weather it with me? I looked down at the engagement ring on my finger, its sparkle now seeming to mock me. In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice, fight for our love and risk everything, or give in to Beatrice's demands and lose the future I dreamed of. As I left the gallery, the sun setting on what felt like the longest day of my life, I steeled myself for the conversation ahead. Whatever I decided, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I paced our living room, waiting for Ethan to return from work. My mind raced with the day's events, the bookshop's bankruptcy, Beatrice's threats, and the looming decision I had to make. When Ethan finally walked in, his face etched with concern, I felt my resolve waver. Jules, what's going on? He asked, pulling me into a tight embrace. I took a deep breath. Ethan, I think we need to postpone the wedding. His body stiffened. Why? As I recounted Beatrice's visit to the gallery and her ultimatum, Ethan's expression darkened. We can't let her win, Julia. We can't let her dictate our lives. But what about the bookshop? My parents have lost everything, I said, tears welling up. Ethan's eyes lit up suddenly. Maybe not. Your dad called me earlier. He didn't want to get your hopes up, but he has a plan. Hope flickered in my chest as Ethan explained. Dad had been working on a new business model, a community-centered bookshop and cafe with space for local authors and artists. The bankruptcy, while devastating, could be a fresh start. He's been keeping it quiet, Ethan said, worried that Beatrice might try to sabotage it if she found out. I felt a surge of pride for my father's resilience. But how will he fund it? Ethan squeezed my hand. That's where we come in. I've been saving for a down payment on a house, but this is more important. We can invest in your dad's new venture. I was stunned by his generosity. Ethan, I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking, I'm offering, he said firmly. We're a team, remember? As we discussed the possibilities, a new determination filled me. We couldn't let Beatrice win, but how could we stop her vendetta once and for all? We need to get to the root of this, I said. The feud between our mothers has gone on long enough. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. What if we brought them together, forced them to confront the past? An idea began to form. The jazz fete next month. We could invite them both, create an opportunity for them to talk. It's risky, Ethan warned. It could backfire spectacularly. But if it works, I countered, we might finally have peace. As we brainstormed our plan, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Your father told me about his new idea. Are you sure about this investment? I looked at Ethan, seeing the love and support in his eyes. We're sure, I replied. Just then, Ethan's phone rang. His face paled as he answered. Dad? What's wrong? I watched as Ethan listened, his expression growing more troubled by the second. When he hung up, he looked shell-shocked. My father's leaving my mother? He said quietly. He says he can't take her behavior anymore. He asked if he could stay with us for a while. The implications hit me like a tidal wave. Beatrice, alone and angry, would be more dangerous than ever. And now we'd be housing her estranged husband. What do we do? I asked, feeling overwhelmed. Ethan took a deep breath. We stick to the plan. We bring our mothers together at the jazz fete. But now we have even more reason to make it work. I nodded, a mix of fear and determination coursing through me. It's all or nothing now. As we settled in for the night, the weight of our decisions pressed down on us. We were risking everything, our families, our futures, our love, on this gamble. But as I looked at Ethan, I knew we had no choice. We had to fight for our happily ever after, no matter the cost. Tomorrow, we'd start preparing for the jazz fete. It would be our battleground, the place where years of resentment and manipulation would finally come to a head. And one way or another, our lives would never be the same again. The night of the jazz fete arrived, and my nerves were frayed to the breaking point. Ethan and I had spent weeks planning this moment, hoping to finally bring our mothers face to face and end this decades-long feud. As we entered the elegantly decorated pavilion, the smooth sounds of jazz filled the air. I scanned the crowd, my heart racing when I spotted my mother, Helen, chatting with some old friends near the bar. "There's my mom," I whispered to Ethan. "Do you see Beatrice?" He shook his head, his brow furrowed. "Not yet. But she'll be here. She never misses a chance to show off." We made our way to Helen, who greeted us with a tight smile. "I still think this is a bad idea," she murmured. "Mom, please," I pleaded. "Just give it a chance." Before she could respond, a hush fell over the crowd. Beatrice had arrived, resplendent in a shimmering gown that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Her eyes narrowed as she spotted us, and she made a beeline for our group. "Well, well," she drawled, her voice dripping with disdain. "What a quaint little gathering." Helen stiffened beside me. "Beatrice, you're looking, well." The tension was palpable as the two women faced each other for the first time in years. I held my breath, praying our plan would work. Suddenly, a booming voice cut through the awkward silence. "Helen, is that you?" We all turned to see Charles Worthington, a renowned philanthropist, approaching with a broad smile. "I haven't seen you since the last charity gala. Your work with the literacy program has been outstanding." Beatrice's jaw dropped as Charles continued to sing my mother's praises. "You know, Beatrice," he said, turning to her, "you really should get involved with Helen's initiatives. She's become quite the pillar of our community." I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as I watched Beatrice struggle to maintain her composure. This was exactly what we'd hoped for. A chance for my mother to shine, to show Beatrice that she wasn't the small-town nobody she'd always believed her to be. But just as I thought we might be making progress, Beatrice's eyes flashed with fury. "Oh, Charles," she said, her voice sickly sweet, "you're so kind to humor Helen's little projects, but surely you know about her sordid past?" My mother paled. "Beatrice, don't." "Did you know," Beatrice continued, raising her voice so others could hear, "that our dear Helen once—" "That's enough," Ethan's voice rang out, startling us all. "Mother, this ends now. Your vendetta against Helen, your attempts to sabotage Julia's career and her family's business, it stops here." Beatrice's face contorted with rage. "How dare you speak to me like that? I am your mother." "And Julia is my fiancée," Ethan shot back. "The woman I love. If you can't accept that, then you're the one who'll be left behind." The crowd around us had grown silent, all eyes on our family drama unfolding. I felt a mixture of pride and terror as Ethan stood up to his mother for the first time. Beatrice's gaze swept over all of us, landing finally on me. "You," she hissed. "You've turned my own son against me, just like your mother stole Thomas all those years ago." "No one stole anyone," Helen said quietly. "It's time to let go of the past, Beatrice." For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something, regret, pain in Beatrice's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by cold fury. "This isn't over," she spat, turning on her heel and storming out of the pavilion. As the crowd began to murmur and disperse, I felt my knees go weak. Ethan caught me, holding me close. "It's okay," he whispered. "We did it. We stood up to her." But as I looked at the faces around us, my shaken mother, the confused onlookers, and Ethan's determined expression, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. In fact, I feared we had just ignited a powder keg that threatened to explode and destroy everything we held dear. The aftermath of the jazz fete was like the calm before a storm. For days, an eerie quiet settled over our lives, but I knew Beatrice was plotting her revenge. I wasn't prepared for how swiftly and viciously it would come. It started with whispers. At the gallery, patrons would suddenly hush when I entered a room. At local cafes, I'd catch snippets of conversation. My mother's name, followed by hushed tones and sidelong glances. Then came the cancellations. Donors pulled out of upcoming exhibitions, citing concerns about the gallery's reputation. Artists I'd cultivated relationships with for years suddenly became unavailable. "It's Beatrice," Ethan said grimly one evening. "She's turning her social circle against us." I felt sick. How can she have so much influence? Before Ethan could answer, his phone rang. It was his father, Marcus. As Ethan listened, his face grew pale. He put the phone on speaker. "I had no idea how unhappy I've been," Marcus was saying. "Spending time with Helen and Pete, it's opened my eyes. The way Beatrice treats people, the constant manipulation, I can't do it anymore." My heart raced. Was Ethan's father leaving Beatrice? "Dad," Ethan said carefully, "what are you saying?" There was a heavy sigh on the other end. "I'm saying I want a divorce, and I'd like to stay with you and Julia for a while, if that's all right." The moment Marcus hung up, our doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother, tears streaming down her face. "Julia," she sobbed, "Beatrice, she's telling everyone about my past, things I've never even told you." As I held my weeping mother, the full weight of Beatrice's retaliation hit me. She wasn't just trying to ruin our reputations, she was tearing our families apart. The next few days were a blur of crisis management. We tried to counter Beatrice's rumors, but her influence ran deep. My father's plans for the new bookshop stalled as investors pulled out. The gallery board called an emergency meeting to discuss my future. Through it all, Ethan stood by me, fierce and unwavering. But I could see the toll it was taking on him. The strain of choosing between his fiancée and his mother, the pain of watching his family fracture. It all came to a head one rainy afternoon. I was at the gallery, pleading my case to the board, when Ethan burst in, his face ashen. "Jules," he said, his voice shaking, "it's your dad. He's in the hospital." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What? Why?" "Stress-induced heart attack," Ethan said softly. "Your mom's with him now." I felt my knees give way, and Ethan caught me before I could fall. As he held me, I saw Beatrice sweep into the room, a triumphant gleam in her eye. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with false concern, "I heard about your father, Julia. Such a shame. Perhaps if he hadn't been so ambitious with his little bookshop scheme, this wouldn't have happened." Something inside me snapped. All the fear, all the pain, all the anger I'd been holding back came rushing to the surface. "Enough!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the gallery. "You've won, Beatrice. Is this what you wanted, to destroy everything and everyone around you?" Beatrice's smug expression faltered for a moment, replaced by something that looked almost like regret, but I was beyond caring. "I'm done," I said, my voice breaking. "You can have your social circle, your reputation, everything. Just leave us alone." I turned to Ethan, tears streaming down my face. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I can't do this anymore. I can't be the reason your family falls apart." As I ran out of the gallery into the pouring rain, I heard Ethan calling my name. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. Because I knew if I did, I might not have the strength to do what I knew I had to do. To walk away from the man I loved, to save him from having to choose between his mother and me. In that moment, soaked to the bone and feeling more alone than ever, I realized that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes the price of happiness is just too high. I stood outside the hospital, rain pelting my face, torn between rushing to my father's side and fleeing from the chaos Beatrice had unleashed. Suddenly, I heard rapid footsteps behind me. "Julia, wait!" Ethan's voice cut through the storm. He grabbed my arm, spinning me to face him. "You can't leave. Not now." "Ethan." No," he interrupted, his eyes blazing with determination. "We're not letting her win. Not this time." Before I could respond, Charles Worthington appeared, umbrella in hand. "Julia, Ethan, thank goodness I found you. There's something you need to see." Confused and wary, we followed Charles back into the hospital. To my shock, a crowd had gathered in the lobby, including many of Beatrice's high society friends. At the center stood Beatrice herself, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "What's going on?" I whispered to Ethan. Charles stepped forward, his voice ringing out. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've called you here because it's time the truth came to light." He produced a stack of documents. "These are records of bribes and blackmail Beatrice has been using to manipulate her social circle. She's been lying to all of you, using your secrets to control you." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Beatrice's face drained of color. "That's not all," Charles continued. She's been sabotaging local businesses, including Julia's family bookshop, all in a misguided attempt to settle an old grudge. I watched in awe as Beatrice's carefully constructed world crumbled around her. Her friends turned away in disgust, whispering among themselves. Suddenly, Marcus pushed through the crowd. "Beatrice," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment, "I've filed for divorce. I can't be part of this toxicity any longer." Beatrice's eyes darted wildly, landing on Ethan and me. For a moment, I saw something I'd never seen in her before. Vulnerability. "Ethan," she pleaded, "you can't believe this. I did it all for you, to protect you from what, Mom?" Ethan asked softly. "From love? From happiness? Julia and her family have shown me more love and acceptance than you ever have." Beatrice crumpled, sobs racking her body. As much as I wanted to feel triumphant, I felt only pity. I stepped forward, surprising even myself. "Beatrice," I said gently, "it's over. The grudge, the manipulation, all of it. It's time to let go of the past." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how," she whispered. In that moment, I saw not the formidable woman who had tormented us, but a scared, lonely person clinging to old wounds. "We'll help you," I said, looking at Ethan, who nodded in agreement. "But first, you need to make amends." Over the next few hours, a lifetime of secrets and resentments came pouring out. Beatrice apologized to Helen, to Marcus, to Ethan, and finally, to me. It wasn't easy, and I knew we had a long road ahead, but it was a start. As the storm outside subsided, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. My father was recovering, the truth was out, and our families, though battered, were beginning to heal. Ethan took my hand, leading me to a quiet corner. "Julia," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "after everything we've been through, I love you more than ever. Will you still marry me?" Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded, pulling him close. "Yes," I whispered, 1,000 times, "yes." In the days that followed, our community rallied around us. The gallery board reinstated me, investors returned to support my father's new bookshop venture, and even Beatrice, humbled and contrite, began the long process of making amends. As Ethan and I stood in front of our new home, a modest but warm house we'd chosen together, I realized that love truly could conquer all. Not just romantic love, but the love of family, of community, and of forgiveness. We had weathered the storm, emerging stronger and more united than ever. And as I looked at Ethan, at our families coming together to help us move in, I knew that this was just the beginning of our greatest adventure yet. The past no longer held us captive. We were free to write our own story, one filled with love, understanding, and the unbreakable bonds of family, both the ones we're born into and the ones we choose. I stared at the phone in my hand, my knuckles white from gripping it too tightly. Ethan's voice echoed in my ears, but I couldn't make sense of his words. My husband of 15 years, the father of our daughter, was telling me something that shook the very foundation of our life together. "Anna, are you still there?" Ethan's voice crackled through the speaker. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to respond. "Yes, I'm here. I can't believe what you're saying. Elise is pregnant?" "Yes, she is, and she needs our support now more than ever." I closed my eyes, trying to process this information. Elise, Ethan's younger sister, had always been a free spirit, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. "Who's the father?" I asked, dreading the answer. There was a pause on the other end of the line. She doesn't want to say, but that's not important right now. What matters is that we're there for her." I felt a knot forming in my stomach. "Ethan, how can you say that's not important? She's married, for heaven's sake. What about Robert?" "Robert left her," Ethan said, his voice tight with anger. "He couldn't handle it. But I won't abandon my sister, Anna. I can't." The knot in my stomach tightened. There was something in Ethan's voice, a fierce protectiveness that went beyond brotherly concern. It made me uneasy. "When are you coming home?" I asked, glancing at the clock. It was almost time to pick up Mia from school. "I don't know," Ethan replied. "Elise needs me here. I might stay a few days." I bit back a sharp retort. "Ethan, we need you too. Mia has her dance recital this weekend, remember?" There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, Anna. I'll try to make it, but I can't promise anything. Elise is in a delicate state right now." I felt a surge of anger and hurt. "And what about your daughter? Isn't she important too?" "Of course she is," Ethan snapped. "But this is different. Elise is all alone." "She has you. I muttered, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Anna, please try to understand. I'll be home as soon as I can. The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the phone, a mixture of emotions swirling inside me, concern for Elise, anger at Ethan, and a growing sense of unease about the whole situation. The sound of the front door opening startled me out of my thoughts. Mom? I'm home! Mia's cheerful voice called out. I quickly composed myself, pushing my worries aside. In the kitchen, sweetie? Mia bounced in, her backpack slung over one shoulder. At 12, she was the spitting image of Ethan, with his dark hair and bright blue eyes. Where's Dad? She asked, looking around. I forced a smile. He had to go help Aunt Elise with something. He'll be home in a few days. Mia's face fell. But my recital. I know, honey, I said, pulling her into a hug. He'll try his best to make it. As I held my daughter, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in our family. Ethan's reaction to Elise's pregnancy, his eagerness to drop everything for her, it all felt wrong somehow. I pulled back, looking into Mia's eyes. How about we practice your routine one more time before dinner? Mia's face lit up. Really? You have time? For you? Always, I said, meaning every word. As we moved to the living room, clearing space for Mia to dance, I pushed my worries to the back of my mind. But they lingered there. A shadow over what should have been a normal evening at home. Whatever was going on with Ethan and Elise, I had a sinking feeling that our lives were about to change dramatically. And not for the better. The days after Ethan's phone call blurred together in a haze of forced normalcy and mounting tension. I tried to keep things steady for Mia's sake, but every time my phone buzzed, I felt my stomach clench. It was a week before Ethan finally came home. I was in the kitchen when I heard the front door open. Daddy! Mia's excited shriek echoed through the house. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, steeling myself for the confrontation I'd been rehearsing all week. But when I walked into the living room, the words died in my throat. Ethan looked different. Haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, but there was an unsettling intensity in his gaze as he hugged Mia. Hey, sweetie, he said, his voice rough. I missed you. I missed you too, Dad, Mia replied, beaming. Did you see my recital video? Mom recorded it for you. A flicker of guilt crossed Ethan's face. I'm sorry I missed it, honey. I'll watch it soon, I promise. I cleared my throat. Mia, why don't you go finish your homework? I need to talk to your father. Once Mia was upstairs, I turned to Ethan. How's Elise? He ran a hand through his hair. She's managing. The pregnancy's been hard on her. And how are you managing? I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've been gone for a week, Ethan. You missed your daughter's recital. You've barely called. I told you Elise needed me, he snapped. She's going through a difficult time. And we're not? I shot back. Do you have any idea how hard it's been trying to explain to Mia why her father wasn't here? Ethan's face softened. I'm sorry, Anna. I know it's been tough, but Elise, she's all alone. She needs support. What about Robert? I asked. Has he really just abandoned her and their unborn child? A strange look passed over Ethan's face. Robert's out of the picture. For good. Something in his tone made me pause. Ethan, what aren't you telling me? He looked away. Nothing. It's complicated, that's all. I stepped closer, forcing him to meet my eyes. No, there's more to this. I can tell what's really going on with Elise. Ethan's jaw clenched. Drop it, Anna. It's family business. I am your family, I exclaimed, my voice rising. Or have you forgotten that? Of course not, he said, but his eyes slid away from mine. Look, I'm tired. Can we talk about this later? Before I could respond, Mia's voice called down from upstairs. Mom? Dad? Is everything okay? I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to steady. Everything's fine, sweetie. Just grown-up talk. Ethan used the interruption to retreat. I'm going to take a shower, he muttered, heading for the stairs. I watched him go, a cold feeling settling in my chest. This wasn't just about Elise's pregnancy. There was something more, something Ethan wasn't telling me. That night, as we lay in bed, the silence between us felt like a chasm. I turned to face Ethan's back, watching the rise and fall of his breathing. Ethan, I whispered, what's happening to us? He didn't respond for so long I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, he murmured. I don't know, Anna. I just don't know. I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling. The man lying next to me suddenly felt like a stranger. The life we'd built together, the love we'd shared, it all seemed to be slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. As I drifted off into an uneasy sleep, one thought kept circling in my mind. Whatever was going on with Elise, it was tearing my family apart, and I was determined to find out why, no matter the cost. The shrill cry of a newborn pierced the air as I stood in the hospital corridor, my hands clenched at my sides. Ethan burst out of the delivery room, his face flushed with excitement. "It's a boy!" he exclaimed, grabbing my shoulders. "Owen's here, Anna. He's perfect." I forced a smile, trying to match his enthusiasm. "That's wonderful, Ethan. How's Elise?" "She's doing great," he said, his eyes shining. "Come on, you have to see him." As we entered the room, I saw Elise cradling a tiny bundle. She looked up, her face glowing despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. "Anna, meet your nephew." I approached the bed, peering down at the infant. My heart softened at the sight of his scrunched-up face. "He's beautiful, Elise," I said softly. Ethan moved to the other side of the bed, his hand resting on Elise's shoulder. "You did amazing, sis," he murmured. Something in his tone made me look up sharply. The tenderness in Ethan's eyes as he gazed at Elise and Owen sent a chill down my spine. "Where's Mia?" Elise asked, breaking the moment. "She's with my parents," I replied. "We thought it best not to bring her to the hospital." Ethan frowned. "She should be here to meet her cousin." "It's late, Ethan," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "She has school tomorrow." He waved dismissively. "This is more important. I'll go pick her up." "No," I said firmly. "She needs her sleep. We can bring her tomorrow." Ethan's eyes flashed with anger. But before he could respond, a nurse entered to check on Elise and Owen. As weeks passed, Ethan's devotion to Elise and Owen only intensified. He was constantly at their house, helping with feedings, diaper changes, and midnight wake-ups. Meanwhile, our own home life suffered. One evening, I found Mia sitting alone at the dinner table, pushing food around her plate. "Sweetie, what's wrong?" I asked, sitting beside her. She looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. "Why doesn't Dad want to be with us anymore?" My heart shattered. I pulled her into a tight hug. "Oh, honey, your dad loves us very much. He's trying to help Aunt Elise right now." "But why does he have to help her all the time?" Mia sniffled. "Can't someone else do it?" I had no answer for her. The truth was, I'd been asking myself the same question. Later that night, I confronted Ethan as he came home late again. "This has to stop, Ethan," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. "Mia thinks you don't want to be with us anymore?" Ethan's face hardened. "That's ridiculous. Of course I want to be with you, but Elise needs me right now." "And we don't," I shot back. "When was the last time you had dinner with us? Or helped Mia with her homework?" "I'm doing the best I can, Anna," he snapped. "Elise is a single mother. She needs support." "And what about your own family?" I asked, my voice rising. "We need you too, Ethan." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "You don't understand. Owen, he needs a father figure." I stared at him, a cold realization settling in my gut. "And you think that should be you?" Ethan's silence was deafening. "Ethan," I said slowly, "what exactly is your relationship with Elise?" His head snapped up, eyes blazing. "What are you implying?" "I don't know," I said, my voice shaking. "But something isn't right here. The way you look at her, the way you prioritize them over us. It's not normal, Ethan." "You're being paranoid," he spat. "Elise is my sister. Owen is my nephew. That's all." But as he stormed out of the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. Something dark and twisted that threatened to tear our family apart. I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. Whatever was going on between Ethan and Elise, one thing was clear. I needed to protect Mia. And to do that, I might have to be prepared to fight for my family in ways I never imagined. I stared at the elaborate birthday cake on the kitchen counter, the number 13 spelled out in pink frosting. Mia's excitement had been building for weeks, and I'd promised her the best birthday party ever. But as I glanced at the clock, my heart sank. Ethan was late. Again. The doorbell rang, and I plastered on a smile as I went to greet Mia's friends. Soon the house was filled with the chatter and laughter of teenage girls. Mia kept glancing at the door, her smile faltering each time it wasn't her father walking through. "Mom," she whispered during a lull in the party games. "Where's Dad?" I squeezed her shoulder. I'm sure he's on his way, sweetie. You know how traffic can be. But as the hours ticked by, my reassurances rang hollow. When it was time to cut the cake, Mia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Let's wait just a few more minutes, she pleaded. I nodded, my own anger building. I stepped into the hallway and dialed Ethan's number for the 10th time. To my surprise, he picked up. Anna, I can't talk right now, he said, his voice hushed and urgent. Ethan, where are you? I hissed. Mia's party started hours ago. I know. I'm sorry. There was an emergency with Owen. An emergency? I interrupted. Is he okay? There was a pause. He's fine now. Just a little fever. But Elise was panicking and I had to. Had to what, Ethan? I snapped. Miss your daughter's 13th birthday for a fever? Couldn't Elise handle it on her own? You don't understand, he said, frustration evident in his voice. Elise needs me. And Mia doesn't. I was nearly shouting now. Get your priorities straight, Ethan. Your daughter is waiting for you. I hung up before he could respond, taking a deep breath to compose myself before returning to the party. Mia's face fell when she saw me return alone. He's not coming, is he? I pulled her into a hug, feeling her body shake with silent sobs. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. But we're not going to let that ruin your day, okay? Let's cut that cake. The party continued, but the joy had been sucked out of it. As the last guest left, Mia retreated to her room without a word. I was clearing up when Ethan finally came home, looking haggard and guilty. Where's Mia? He asked, his eyes darting around the room. In her room, I said coldly. Crying, probably. Nice of you to show up. Ethan's face crumpled. Anna, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Save it, I cut him off. I'm not the one you need to apologize to. He nodded and headed upstairs. I followed, lingering in the hallway as he knocked on Mia's door. Mia? Sweetheart, can I come in? There was no response. Ethan opened the door slowly and I heard Mia's muffled sobs. Oh, honey, Ethan said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. Why weren't you here? Mia's voice was small and hurt. Samna, don't you care about me anymore? Of course I do, Ethan exclaimed. You're my little girl. I love you more than anything. Then why are you always with Aunt Elise and Owen? Mia asked. Don't we matter anymore? There was a long pause. When Ethan spoke again, his voice was strained. It's complicated, sweetheart. Aunt Elise and Owen, they need me right now. And we don't. Mia's voice rose. I needed you today, Dad, and you weren't here. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped into the room, my eyes locking with Ethan's. I think you should go, I said quietly. Ethan looked between Mia and me, desperation in his eyes. Anna, please. No, I said firmly. You've made your choice, Ethan. Now you need to live with it. As Ethan left, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I sat on the bed and pulled Mia close. She clung to me, her tears soaking my shirt. In that moment, I knew things would never be the same. The life we'd built was crumbling, and I had to decide how to protect what mattered most, my daughter. The tension in our house had become unbearable since Mia's birthday disaster. Ethan was spending more time than ever at Elise's, and when he was home, the silence between us was deafening. I'd reached my breaking point. One evening, as Ethan was heading out yet again, I blocked the door. We need to talk, I said firmly. He sighed, checking his watch. Can it wait? Elise is expecting me. No, it can't, I snapped. Sit down, Ethan. Now. Reluctantly, he followed me to the living room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I'd been avoiding for months. What's really going on between you and Elise? I asked bluntly. Ethan's face hardened. We've been through this, Anna. She's my sister. I'm helping her with Owen. It's more than that, I pressed. The way you look at her, the way you prioritize them over us, it's not normal, Ethan. He stood up abruptly. You're being ridiculous. Is this why you stopped me to accuse me of what exactly? I met his gaze unflinchingly. I don't know. You tell me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're in love with your sister. The color drained from Ethan's face. For a moment, he looked like I'd slapped him. Then his expression twisted into something I'd never seen before. A mix of anger, guilt, and relief. You have no idea what you're talking about, he hissed. Then explain it to me. I shouted, my composure finally cracking. Because I'm losing my husband, Mia's losing her father, and I don't understand why. Ethan paced the room, running his hands through his hair. It's complicated, Anna. Elise and I, we have a bond you couldn't possibly understand. Try me, I said, my voice cold. He stopped, turning to face me. Elise and I, we've always been close. closer than most siblings. When she got pregnant, when Robert left her, I couldn't abandon her. I couldn't let her face that alone. But Owen isn't just your nephew, is he? I whispered, the horrible realization dawning on me. Ethan's silence was all the confirmation I needed. I felt the room spin, nausea rising in my throat. How long? I managed to choke out. Anna, please. How long, Ethan? I demanded. He slumped onto the couch, defeated. Years. Since we were teenagers. It just happened. I stumbled back, gripping the wall for support. And Owen? Ethan nodded, unable to meet my eyes. The betrayal, the lies, the years of deception. It all came crashing down on me. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a world that no longer made sense. Does Mia know? I asked, my voice barely audible. God, no, Ethan said quickly. We never wanted to hurt her, or you. We tried to end it so many times, but you couldn't, I finished for him. And now there's a child. Ethan looked up, his eyes pleading. I know it's wrong, I know it's messed up, but I love them, Anna. I can't abandon them now. In that moment, looking at the man I thought I knew, I felt something inside me harden. The shock and pain gave way to a cold, clear purpose. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of this house, I repeated, my voice gaining strength. Pack your things and leave. Anna, please, we can work this out. There's nothing to work out, I cut him off. You made your choice a long time ago, Ethan. Now I'm making mine. As Ethan gathered his belongings, moving like a man in a daze, I sat at the kitchen table, my mind racing. I knew the road ahead would be hard. Explaining this to Mia, dealing with the inevitable fallout when the truth came out, it would be a nightmare. But as I heard the front door close behind Ethan for the last time, I felt a strange sense of calm. The life I thought I had was over, but in its place, I saw a chance for something new. A life built on truth, not lies. A life where I could protect Mia from the twisted web her father had woven. It wouldn't be easy, but as I climbed the stairs to wake Mia and begin the hardest conversation of our lives, I knew one thing for certain. We would survive this. We had to. The invitation to Owen's first birthday party sat on our kitchen counter like a ticking time bomb. Mia eyed it warily, her young face etched with a wariness no 13-year-old should possess. Do we have to go, Mom? She asked, her voice small. I sighed, pulling her close. I think we should, sweetie. He's still your cousin. The truth was, I dreaded this party as much as Mia did. But after months of separation and tense co-parenting arrangements, I felt we needed to make an appearance, if only to show Ethan we were moving on. As we pulled up to Elise's house, my stomach churned. Colorful balloons decorated the front yard, a cheerful facade that felt like a mockery of the turmoil beneath. Ethan greeted us at the door, his smile strained. Anna, Mia, I'm glad you came. Mia brushed past him without a word, heading straight for a group of cousins in the backyard. I followed Ethan inside, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The house was filled with family members, many of whom shot curious glances our way. I plastered on a smile, determined to get through this for Mia's sake. Elise approached, Owen balanced on her hip. Anna, thank you for coming, she said, her voice syrupy sweet. It means so much to us. I nodded stiffly, unable to form words. The sight of Owen, with his familiar blue eyes, Ethan's eyes, made my chest tighten. As the party progressed, I kept a watchful eye on Mia. She seemed to be holding up well, laughing with her cousins and pointedly avoiding Ethan and Elise. It wasn't until the cake-cutting ceremony that things took a turn. Ethan stood up, tapping his glass for attention. I'd like to make a toast, he announced, his eyes shining. To Owen, our beautiful boy, and to family, the bonds that tie us together no matter what. His gaze lingered on Elise, and I saw her blush. My stomach turned. Owen's arrival has made me realize what truly matters, Ethan continued. Family is everything, and I have a vision for our future, a future where our children carry on our legacy. I frowned, a sense of unease growing. In fact, Ethan said, his voice filled with misplaced pride, I've already started planning for Owen and Mia's future together. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see them united, keeping our family's bond strong? The room fell silent. I felt the blood drain from my face as the implications of his words sank in. What are you talking about? I demanded, my voice shaking. Ethan turned to me, his eyes bright with a fervor I didn't recognize. Think about it, Owen, cousins united in marriage. It's perfect, our family's legacy preserved. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. Have you lost your mind? I hissed. Mia is 13, Owen is a baby, and they're cousins. It's not unheard of. Ethan argued, oblivious to the horrified looks around him. In many cultures, stop it, I shouted. Just stop. This is sick, Ethan. You're sick. I scanned the room for Mia, panic rising when I couldn't see her. Then I heard a sob from the hallway. I rushed out to find Mia curled up on the floor, her body shaking. Oh, baby, I whispered, gathering her in my arms. I'm so sorry. We're leaving now. Ethan appeared in the doorway. Anna, wait, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I spat, helping Mia to her feet. Stay away from us, Ethan. I mean it. As we hurried to the car, Mia clung to me, her tears soaking my shirt. Mom, she whimpered. What's wrong with Dad? I held her tighter, my mind racing. How could I protect her from this? How had things gone so terribly wrong? Driving away from Elise's house, I made a decision. This wasn't just about a broken marriage anymore. This was about protecting Mia from a toxic, twisted family dynamic that threatened to destroy her. As we pulled into our driveway, I turned to Mia, my resolve hardening. Pack a bag, sweetheart. We're going to Grandma and Grandpa's for a while. Mia nodded, relief flooding her tear-stained face. As she ran inside, I sat in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I knew the road ahead would be tough, but I was ready to fight. For Mia, for our future, for the family we deserved. The drive to my parents' house was a blur of streetlights and Mia's muffled sobs. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, my mind racing with the enormity of what had just happened. As we pulled into the driveway, my mother rushed out, her face etched with concern. Anna, what's wrong? Is Mia okay? I shook my head, unable to form words. We stumbled inside, Mia clinging to me like a lifeline. It's Ethan, I finally managed to choke out. He's lost his mind. Over cups of strong tea, with Mia safely tucked away in the guest room, I poured out the whole sordid story to my parents. Their faces morphed from shock to horror to outrage. You can't go back there, my father said firmly. You and Mia will stay here as long as you need. I nodded gratefully, feeling a small measure of relief, but I knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, as Mia slept, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Ethan. Anna, please, let me explain. You're overreacting. Think of Mia. We can work this out. Come home. I deleted each one, my resolve strengthening with every plea. But then came a message that made my blood run cold. If you don't bring Mia home, I'll file for full custody. Don't test me, Anna. My hands shook as I showed the message to my parents. He can't do that, can he? I whispered. My father's face hardened. We won't let him. I'm calling our lawyer right now. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal consultations and hushed conversations. Mia wandered through the house like a ghost, her eyes haunted. I tried to shield her from the worst of it, but I knew she sensed the tension. On the fourth day, as I was helping my mother with dinner, the doorbell rang. My heart stopped when I saw Ethan standing there, his eyes wild. Where's Mia? He demanded, trying to push past me. I stood my ground. You need to leave, Ethan. Now. She's my daughter, he shouted. You can't keep her from me. Mia appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale. Dad? Ethan's expression softened. Mia, sweetheart, come on, we're going home. I moved to block the stairs. She's not going anywhere with you. Ethan's face contorted with rage. He lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You can't do this, Anna. You can't take my family away from me. Let go of her. My father's voice boomed as he appeared from the kitchen, phone in hand. The police are on their way, Ethan. Leave now, or you'll be arrested. For a moment, I thought Ethan might actually hit my father. But then, as if deflating, he released my arm and stumbled back. This isn't over, he hissed. I'll see you in court. As he stormed off, I collapsed against the wall, my legs giving out. Mia rushed down the stairs, throwing herself into my arms. Mom, she sobbed, I'm scared. I held her tight, my own tears falling. I know, baby. I am too, but we're going to be okay. I promise. I promise. That night, as Mia finally slept, curled up next to me in the guest room bed, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The life I'd known was gone, shattered beyond repair. The man I'd loved, the father of my child, had become a stranger, a threat. I knew the road ahead would be hard. A custody battle, the inevitable gossip and judgment from those who didn't know the whole story, the challenge of rebuilding our lives from scratch. But as I looked at Mia's peaceful face, I felt a fierce determination well up inside me. No matter what it took, no matter how hard I had to fight, I would protect my daughter. I would give her the safe, loving home she deserved, even if it meant facing down Ethan and his twisted family alone. As the first light of dawn crept through the window, I made a silent vow. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about reclaiming our lives, our happiness, our future. And I was ready for the fight. The courtroom felt suffocating as I sat, hands clasped tightly in my lap, waiting for the judge to return with her decision. Mia sat beside me, her face pale but determined. Across the aisle, Ethan glared, his eyes cold and unfamiliar. The past 6 months had been a nightmare of legal battles, therapy sessions, and sleepless nights. But through it all, Mia and I had grown stronger, our bond unbreakable in the face of adversity. The judge entered, her face unreadable. In the matter of custody for Mia Stewart, I've reached a decision. I held my breath, feeling Mia's hand slip into mine. Full custody is granted to Anna Stewart, with supervised visitation for Ethan Stewart, for pending completion of mandatory counseling and evaluation. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. Mia threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face. "We did it, Mom," she whispered. As we left the courtroom, Ethan approached, his face a mask of anger and desperation. "This isn't over, Anna. I'll appeal." "No, Ethan." I cut him off, my voice steady. "It is over. For Mia's sake, get help. Be the father she deserves." With that, we walked away, leaving behind the shattered remains of our old life. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. We moved into a small apartment, just Mia and me. I found a job at a local community center helping families in crisis. The irony wasn't lost on me, but the work felt right, like I was finally where I was meant to be. Mia thrived in her new school, making friends and rediscovering her love for art. Slowly, the haunted look left her eyes, replaced by a spark of joy and hope. One evening, as we sat on our tiny balcony watching the sunset, Mia turned to me. "Mom, are you happy?" I looked at her, really looked at the strong, resilient young woman she was becoming, and felt a surge of pride and love. "Yes, sweetheart, I am. Are you?" She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I am. I miss Dad sometimes, but I'm glad we're here. Just us." I pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Me too, baby. Me too." As the years passed, our little family of 2 grew stronger. Ethan eventually completed his counseling and began supervised visits with Mia. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Elise and Owen faded into the background, a painful chapter closed. On Mia's 18th birthday, we threw a small party in our apartment. As I watched her blow out the candles, surrounded by friends and laughter, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Later that night, as we cleaned up, Mia hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Mom," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "for everything, for being strong enough for both of us." Tears pricked my eyes as I held her close. "Oh, Mia, you were the strong one. You gave me the courage to fight." As she pulled away, wiping her eyes, she grinned. "We make a pretty good team, huh?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. The best. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain, the fear, the heartbreak, it had all led to this moment of quiet joy. I'd lost the life I thought I wanted, but I'd gained something far more precious, a true understanding of my own strength and an unbreakable bond with my daughter. I thought of the frightened, confused woman I'd been all those years ago, receiving that fateful phone call from Ethan. If I could go back, I'd tell her, "You're stronger than you know. Trust yourself. Fight for what matters. The road ahead is hard, but the destination is worth every step." As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We'd weathered the storm, Mia and I. We'd faced the darkness and emerged into the light, scarred but unbroken. And whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we'd face them together, with love, courage, and the unshakable bond between a mother and daughter. In the end, that was the greatest victory of all. The scent of lavender fabric softener clung to Peter's shirt as I pulled it from the dryer. It was a comforting smell, one that usually brought a smile to my face. But not today. Today, as I reached into his pocket to check for loose change before folding, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. I fished it out, my heart racing as I uncurled my fingers. There, nestled in my palm, was a delicate gold wedding band. But it wasn't mine. "Hannah?" Peter's voice echoed from downstairs. "Have you seen my blue tie?" I froze, the ring burning in my hand. "Just a minute," I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. I quickly slipped the ring into my own pocket and grabbed his tie from the laundry basket. As I descended the stairs, Peter was pacing in the living room, checking his watch. "There you are," he said, barely looking up. "I'm running late for my meeting." I handed him the tie, studying his face. Did he know I'd found the ring? Was there a flicker of guilt in his eyes? But he just gave me a perfunctory peck on the cheek and headed for the door. "Peter," I said, my voice catching. He turned, eyebrows raised. I was thinking we could have dinner together tonight. It's been a while since we've had a proper meal, just the two of us." He sighed, checking his watch again. "I don't know, Hannah. This project is really heating up. I might be working late." "Oh." I tried to hide my disappointment. "Well, maybe tomorrow then?" "We'll see," he said, already halfway out the door. "Don't wait up." The slam of the door echoed through the empty house. I sank onto the couch, my hand instinctively reaching for the ring in my pocket. 20 years of marriage, and this is what it had come to: secrets and lies wrapped in a gold band that wasn't mine. I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over my best friend Maggie's number. But what would I say? "Hey, Mag, I think my husband's cheating on me." The words stuck in my throat. Instead, I found myself dialing another number. It rang twice before a cheerful voice answered. "Moore & Associates, how may I direct your call?" "Yes, hello," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'd like to speak with someone about hiring a private investigator." There was a pause on the other end. "Of course, ma'am. I'll transfer you to Mr. Moore. May I have your name?" I hesitated, then squared my shoulders. Hannah Thompson." As I waited to be transferred, I caught sight of our wedding photo on the mantel. Peter and I, young and in love, beaming at the camera. When had that happiness slipped away? And more importantly, how had I not noticed? The line clicked and a deep voice came on. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Jack Moore. I understand you're interested in our services." I took a deep breath, twisting my ring on my finger. "Yes, Mr. Moore, I need your help. I think my husband is having an affair." There was a moment of silence. Then Mr. Moore spoke again, his voice gentle but professional. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mrs. Thompson. Can you tell me what's led you to this conclusion?" I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. How could I explain the years of growing distance, the late nights at the office, the way Peter's eyes no longer lit up when he saw me? And now, the damning evidence of that other ring, hidden away in Peter's pocket like a dirty secret. As I struggled to find the right words, I heard the front door open. My heart leapt into my throat. "I'm sorry, Mr. Moore," I whispered urgently. "I have to go. I'll call you back." I ended the call just as Peter walked into the living room, his brow furrowed. "Hannah, who were you talking to?" I plastered on a smile, hoping he couldn't hear the pounding of my heart. "Oh, just Maggie. Girl talk, you know." He nodded absently, already loosening his tie. "Listen, I forgot some files I need for my meeting. I'll be heading back out in a minute." As he climbed the stairs, I felt the weight of the other woman's ring in my pocket, a silent accusation against the man I thought I knew. In that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront Peter, not yet. First, I needed answers, and I would get them, no matter the cost. I couldn't sleep that night, tossing and turning as memories of Peter and I flooded my mind. How had we gone from that bright-eyed couple to this? I glanced at Peter's sleeping form, his back turned to me. When had that become the norm? As dawn broke, I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him. In the kitchen, I absently stirred my coffee, lost in thought. The first time I met Peter flashed before my eyes. A chance encounter at a bookstore, both of us reaching for the same novel. "You have excellent taste," he'd said, flashing that charming smile that made my heart skip a beat. We'd spent hours talking that day about books, dreams, life. It felt like I'd known him forever. Now, 20 years later, I wondered if I'd ever really known him at all. The sound of Peter's footsteps jolted me back to reality. He entered the kitchen, already dressed for work. "Morning," he mumbled, barely glancing my way as he poured his coffee. I took a deep breath. "Peter, I was thinking, maybe we could take a weekend trip soon? Just the two of us?" He frowned, checking his phone. "Hannah, you know how busy work is right now. I can't just take off." "It doesn't have to be now." I pressed. "Maybe next month? We could go to that little B&B we loved, remember?" Peter sighed, finally looking at me. "Look, I appreciate the thought, but now's not a good time. Maybe later, okay? As he turned to leave, I felt something inside me snap. When is it ever a good time, Peter? When was the last time we did anything together? He paused, his back to me. Hannah, don't start. I don't have time for this right now. You never have time, I exclaimed, my voice rising. You're always working, always busy. It's like I don't even exist anymore. Peter whirled around, his face flushed with anger. What do you want from me, Hannah? I'm working my ass off to provide for us, and all you do is complain. His words hit me like a slap. All I do? I've dedicated my life to our home, to you. And this is how you repay me? For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by cold indifference. I have to go, he said flatly. We'll talk about this later. As the door slammed behind him, I sank to the floor, my body shaking with sobs. How had we become strangers living under the same roof? With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed Mr. Moore's number. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful. Mrs. Thompson, his calm voice answered. I'm glad you called back. Are you ready to proceed? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Yes, Mr. Moore, I need to know the truth about my husband. I understand, he replied. Can you tell me about any suspicious behavior you've noticed? I hesitated, then spilled everything, the late nights, the emotional distance, and finally, the ring I'd found. As I spoke, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. That's certainly concerning, Mr. Moore said when I finished. We'll start our investigation immediately. But Mrs. Thompson, I must warn you, are you prepared for what we might uncover? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Was I ready to have my worst fears confirmed, to have my entire life upended? I have to know, I whispered, more to myself than to Mr. Moore. Whatever it is, I need to know the truth. Very well, he replied. We'll be in touch soon with our findings. As I ended the call, I noticed a text from Peter. Working late tonight, don't wait up. My fingers hovered over the keypad, a dozen angry responses flashing through my mind. Instead, I simply replied, okay. I looked around our home, filled with memories of happier times, photos of our wedding, our honeymoon, holidays spent together. Each image now felt like a mockery of what we'd become. Whatever Mr. Moore uncovered, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. And as that realization sank in, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The worst was yet to come, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face it head-on. The manila envelope sat on the kitchen table, taunting me. Mr. Moore had delivered it personally this morning, his face grim as he handed it over. Mrs. Thompson, he'd said, I think you should prepare yourself. Now, hours later, I still couldn't bring myself to open it. The truth I'd been seeking suddenly felt too heavy to bear. But as I heard Peter's key in the lock, I knew it was now or never. Hannah? Peter called out, his voice echoing through the house. You home? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. In the kitchen. He walked in, loosening his tie. His eyes fell on the envelope. What's that? Why don't you tell me, Peter? I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I pushed the envelope towards him. Go ahead, open it. Confusion flickered across his face as he reached for it. Hannah, what's going on? Just open it, I repeated, my heart pounding. As Peter pulled out the contents, photographs, hotel receipts, a transcript of a damning phone conversation, I watched the color drain from his face. Hannah, he started, his voice low. I can explain. Explain. I cut him off, anger surging through me. Explain how you've been lying to me for months, how you've been sneaking around with her. I grabbed one of the photos, shoving it in his face. It showed Peter and a young blonde woman, locked in an intimate embrace outside a hotel. Who is she, Peter? How long has this been going on? He ran a hand through his hair, sighing heavily. Her name's Amber. We met at a conference 6 months ago. It just happened. It just happened, I repeated incredulously. For 6 months? And what about this? I pulled out the other woman's wedding ring from my pocket, the one I'd found in his laundry. Peter's eyes widened in recognition. Where did you? It doesn't matter, I snapped. What matters is that you've been living a double life, Peter. You've made a fool of me, of our marriage. Oh, come on, Hannah, Peter scoffed, his initial shock giving way to defensiveness. It's not like our marriage has been perfect. When was the last time you did anything besides play housewife? His words hit me like a slap. Play housewife? I've dedicated my life to our home, to you. And that's the problem. Peter shouted, slamming his hand on the table. You've become nothing but a housewife. Where's the woman I fell in love with, the one with dreams and ambitions? I stared at him, stunned. So this is my fault? Because I chose to support you, to build our life together? Peter's face softened slightly. Hannah, that's not what I meant. It's just, things change, people change. And instead of talking to me about it, you decided to cheat? I felt tears stinging my eyes. Was I really that unimportant to you? Of course not, Peter said, reaching for my hand. I jerked away. Hannah, please, we can work this out. I'll end things with Amber. We can go to counseling. No, I cut him off, my voice firm. There's no coming back from this, Peter. You've broken us beyond repair. So that's it? Peter's voice rose again. 20 years of marriage and you're just giving up? I'm not the one who gave up, I shot back. You did that the moment you decided to betray me. We stood there, the weight of 2 decades crumbling between us. Finally, Peter spoke, his voice cold. Fine. If that's how you want it, I'll call my lawyer in the morning. As he stormed out of the kitchen, I called after him, Peter! He turned, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Don't forget to take your girlfriend's ring with you, I said, tossing it at his feet. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the house. I sank into a chair, my body shaking with sobs. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd built my life around had just shattered. But as the initial shock subsided, I felt something else stirring within me. A spark of determination. Peter might have broken my heart, but I refused to let him break my spirit. Whatever came next, I would face it head on. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. The house felt emptier than ever as I wandered from room to room, unable to settle. It had been 3 days since my confrontation with Peter, and he hadn't come home since. Part of me was relieved, but another part, a part I hated, missed him desperately. I found myself in our bedroom, staring at the photos on the dresser. 20 years of memories, now tainted by betrayal. As I picked up our wedding photo, something inside me cracked. What if I had overreacted? What if there was still a chance to save our marriage? Before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed my phone and dialed Peter's number. It went straight to voicemail. Peter, it's me, I said, my voice shaking. I think we need to talk. Please come home. Hours passed with no response. I paced the living room, rehearsing what I'd say when he arrived, how I'd apologize for my anger, how we could work through this together. But as night fell, the house remained silent. Just as I was about to give up hope, I heard a key in the lock. My heart leaped as Peter walked in, looking tired and disheveled. Hannah, he said, his voice wary, I got your message. I took a deep breath. Peter, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have reacted so harshly. I think if we just talk. Stop. He cut me off, holding up a hand. Hannah, I'm only here to get some clothes. I'm staying at Amber's for now. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. You're living with her? Peter sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated, Hannah. But yes, I am. But I called to apologize, to try and work things out, I stammered, feeling foolish and small. Work things out? Peter laughed bitterly. Hannah, our marriage has been over for a long time. We were just going through the motions. That's not true, I protested weakly. We can fix this, Peter. We can go to counseling, try to reconnect. I don't want to fix it. Peter exploded, his face flushed with anger. Don't you get it? I'm in love with Amber. She understands me in a way you never have. I felt like I was drowning, grasping for anything to keep me afloat. But what about our life together? Our home, our memories. Peter's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry, Hannah. I truly am. But I can't keep living a lie. Amber's pregnant. We're starting a family together. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Pregnant, I whispered, my voice barely audible. How long have you known? A few weeks, Peter admitted. I was trying to find the right time to tell you. Anger surged through me, momentarily displacing the shock. The right time? Was that before or after you let me humiliate myself by begging you to come back? Peter at least had the decency to look ashamed. I'm sorry, Hannah. I never meant for things to end this way. As he turned to head upstairs, presumably to pack his things, something inside me snapped. You're sorry? I shouted, following him. You destroy our marriage, get another woman pregnant, and all you can say is you're sorry? Peter whirled around, his face contorted with frustration. What do you want from me, Hannah? I've made my choice. It's time for you to accept it and move on. Move on? I laughed hysterically. You've taken everything from me, Peter. My trust, my love, my future. What exactly am I supposed to move on to? For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd fallen in love with in Peter's eyes, but it quickly vanished, replaced by cold determination. That's not my problem anymore, Hannah. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce proceedings. As Peter disappeared into our bedroom, no, his old bedroom, I stood frozen in the hallway. The life I'd known, the future I'd planned, was crumbling around me. But as the initial shock wore off, I felt something else rising within me, a fierce, burning anger. Peter might think he'd taken everything from me, but he was wrong. I still had my dignity, my strength, and as I listened to him pack, I made a decision. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my revenge. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday, a crisp manila envelope that felt like a death sentence for my marriage. I stared at Peter's signature, the familiar scrawl now seeming cold and foreign. My hands shook as I reached for the phone, dialing my sister Kate's number. Hannah, what's wrong? Kate's concerned voice came through. He's really doing it, Kate, I choked out. Peter's filed for divorce. Oh, honey, Kate sighed. I'm coming over. Don't you dare sign anything until I get there. An hour later, Kate was at my kitchen table, poring over the documents. Her brow furrowed as she flipped through the pages. Hannah, have you read this thoroughly? I shook my head, still numb. I just saw his signature and... Kate's face hardened. Well, you need to read it. Peter's trying to screw you over. Those words jolted me out of my stupor. What do you mean? He's claiming that since you were just a housewife, Kate spat the words, you're not entitled to half of the assets. He's offering you a pittance, Hannah. Anger flared within me, momentarily displacing the grief. How dare he? I supported him through law school. I managed our home. I know, sis, Kate interrupted gently, but Peter's a lawyer. He knows how to manipulate the system. As the reality of the situation sank in, a new wave of despair washed over me. What am I going to do, Kate? I don't have any money of my own. How can I fight this? Kate squeezed my hand. You're not alone, Hannah. We'll figure this out. Just then my phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number. Mrs. Thompson, this is Jack Moore. I have some information you need to see. Can we meet? I showed the message to Kate, explaining about the private investigator I'd hired. Hannah, Kate said slowly, I think you need to meet with him. Peter's playing dirty. It's time you fought back. The next day, I met Mr. Moore at a quiet cafe. He slid a thick folder across the table. Mrs. Thompson, what I found goes beyond just the affair. With trembling hands, I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, property deeds, and offshore account details. My eyes widened as I realized what I was looking at. Peter's been hiding assets, Mr. Moore explained. Significant ones. He's been preparing for this divorce for months, maybe even years. The betrayal cut deep, but something else was rising within me. A fierce determination. What does this mean for the divorce? Mr. Moore leaned forward. It means you have leverage, Mrs. Thompson. Peter's committed fraud. If this comes to light, he could lose his law license. As the implications sank in, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Thank you, Mr. Moore. You've been incredibly helpful. Leaving the cafe, I called Kate. I need you to recommend a good divorce lawyer, I said, my voice steady. The best you know. Hannah? Kate sounded surprised by my tone. What happened? I'm done being the victim, Kate. Peter thinks he can walk all over me. He's about to learn how wrong he is. That evening, as I sat in my empty house, I pulled out an old photo album. Pictures of Peter and me in happier times stared back at me. I traced Peter's face in our wedding photo, remembering the man I thought I'd married. You should have been honest with me, Peter, I whispered to the smiling face. Now, all bets are off. I closed the album with a snap, my mind made up. Tomorrow, I'd meet with a lawyer. I'd fight for what was rightfully mine. And Peter? He was about to discover that the just a housewife he'd dismissed was a force to be reckoned with. As I climbed into my bed that night, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Hope. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my comeback. The sleek office of Sarah Goldstein, divorce attorney extraordinaire, felt like a war room. Spread across her desk were the documents Mr. Moore had provided, along with the insulting divorce papers Peter had served me. Hannah, Sarah said, her eyes sharp behind her glasses, With this evidence of hidden assets, we have a strong case, but we need to move fast. I nodded, a newfound determination coursing through me. What's our next step? We file a countersuit, Sarah explained. We'll demand a full financial disclosure and push for an emergency hearing. Peter won't see it coming. As we strategized, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Peter. We need to talk. Meet me at the house tonight. I showed Sarah the message. She frowned. Be careful, Hannah. He might be trying to manipulate you. I know, I replied, my jaw set. But I'm not the same woman he left behind. I can handle Peter now. That evening, I walked into our once shared home, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. Peter was waiting in the living room, looking haggard. Hannah, he started, his voice softer than I'd heard in months. I've been thinking, maybe we rushed into this divorce. Maybe we could try counseling? For a moment my heart leapt, but then I remembered the hidden assets, the lies, the other woman carrying his child. Why the sudden change of heart, Peter? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. I miss you, Hannah, our life together. It's not the same with, well, you know. With Amber? I supplied, watching him flinch at the name. Your pregnant girlfriend? Peter's eyes widened. How did you? I know a lot of things now, Peter. I cut him off, including the offshore accounts and hidden properties. The color drained from his face. Hannah, I can explain. Save it, I snapped. I'm done with your explanations and your lies. You wanted a divorce? You've got one, but it's going to be on my terms now. Peter's demeanor changed instantly, his face hardening. You're bluffing. You don't have any proof. I pulled out my phone, showing him a photo of one of the documents Mr. Moore had provided. Want to bet your law license on that? For a moment, I saw fear in Peter's eyes. Then, like a cornered animal, he lashed out. You think you can threaten me? I made you, Hannah. Without me, you're nothing but a washed-up housewife. His words stung, but I refused to let him see how they affected me. Is that what you think? Well, this washed-up housewife is about to take you for everything you've got. Peter lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You can't do this to me. I won't let you ruin everything I've worked for. Fear surged through me, but I stood my ground. Let go of me, Peter. Now. Just then, the front door burst open. Kate rushed in, followed by a police officer. Hannah, are you okay? I got worried when you didn't answer my calls. Peter released me immediately, stepping back. The officer looked between us. Is everything all right here? I rubbed my arm, already feeling bruises forming. No, I said firmly. It's not. I'd like to press charges for assault. As the officer led Peter away, reading him his rights, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and a grim satisfaction. Kate hugged me tightly. Oh, Hannah, I'm so sorry. Are you sure you want to go through with the charges? I nodded, watching as Peter was placed in the police car. Yes, it's time he faced consequences for his actions. That night, as I lay in bed, the events of the day replayed in my mind. Peter's attempt at reconciliation, his true colors showing when cornered, the fear I'd felt when he grabbed me. But beneath it all was a steely resolve. I'd stood up to Peter. I'd refused to be manipulated or intimidated. For the first time in years, I felt truly in control of my life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, court hearings, divorce proceedings, rebuilding my life. But as I drifted off to sleep, I knew one thing for certain. I was ready to face whatever came next. The old Hannah was gone, and in her place was a woman who would never again let anyone underestimate or mistreat her. The courthouse loomed before me, its stone facade a silent witness to countless battles. Today it would host mine. I smoothed my skirt, took a deep breath, and walked in, Sarah Goldstein at my side. Remember, Sarah whispered, stay calm, no matter what Peter or his lawyers say. We have the upper hand. I nodded, steeling myself as we entered the courtroom. Peter was already there, looking polished in an expensive suit. Our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of surprise, perhaps at my composure, or the determination in my gaze. As the judge entered and proceedings began, I felt a surreal calm. This was it, the moment that would define my future. Peter's lawyer spoke first, painting me as a vindictive wife, making false accusations out of spite. I clenched my fists under the table, willing myself to remain stoic. Then it was Sarah's turn. She stood, her voice clear and confident. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Thompson has committed fraud by hiding substantial assets. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Peter's face paled as Sarah presented the documents from Mr. Moore. His lawyer scrambled to object, but the judge overruled him. As Sarah detailed the offshore accounts and properties Peter had concealed, I watched him squirm. For the first time I saw fear in his eyes, the fear of a man whose carefully constructed world was crumbling. Then, the bombshell. "Furthermore, Your Honor," Sarah continued, "we have evidence of Mr. Thompson's infidelity, including his relationship with a woman who is now pregnant with his child." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Peter's lawyer leaned in, whispering furiously to him. "I caught fragments. Didn't tell me. Changes everything." The judge called a recess, and as we filed out, I felt lightheaded. Sarah squeezed my arm. "You're doing great, Hannah. Stay strong." In the hallway, Peter cornered me. "How could you do this?" he hissed. "You're ruining everything." I stood my ground. "No, Peter. You ruined everything when you decided to betray our marriage." His eyes narrowed. "You think you've won? I still have tricks up my sleeve. By the time I'm done, you'll be lucky if you get a penny." Before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the courtroom doors. A young blonde woman burst in, her pregnant belly obvious. "Peter!" she cried. "What's going on? Why didn't you tell me about this hearing?" "Amber, Peter's mistress. The woman carrying his child." Our eyes met, and I saw confusion and hurt in hers. In that moment, I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. She, too, had been deceived by Peter. Peter looked panicked, caught between his wife and his pregnant girlfriend. "Amber, you shouldn't be here. Please, just go home." "Go home?" Amber's voice rose. "I'm carrying your child, Peter. You promised we'd be together." The hallway had gone silent, all eyes on our drama. I saw pity in some faces, disgust in others. Peter, the man I'd loved for 20 years, looked small and pathetic. Suddenly, Amber turned to me. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't know. He told me you were separated, that you didn't love him anymore." The weight of it all, the lies, the betrayal, the public humiliation, crashed over me. I felt my knees buckle, but Sarah caught me, steadying me. "Mrs. Thompson," the bailiff called, "the judge is ready to resume." As we re-entered the courtroom, I felt as if I was walking through a fog. Peter's deceptions had hurt not just me, but this young woman too. The life I'd built, the future I'd planned, all of it was gone. But as I took my seat, facing the judge, a strange clarity washed over me. This wasn't just about the money or the assets anymore. It was about justice, about standing up for myself and every other woman who had been lied to and manipulated. I looked at Peter, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. "You've lost, Peter," I said quietly. "Not just the case, but everything that ever mattered." As the judge called the court to order, I sat up straight, ready to face whatever came next. The old Hannah might have crumbled under the weight of this moment, but the woman I'd become? She was ready to fight and win. The sun streamed through the windows of my new apartment, casting a warm glow on the freshly painted walls. It had been 6 months since the fateful day in court, and my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. I sipped my morning coffee, savoring the quiet moment before starting my day. The stillness was interrupted by a ping from my phone, a news alert. My heart skipped a beat as I read the headline, "Prominent lawyer Peter Thompson disbarred for fraud and ethical violations." A mix of emotions washed over me: vindication, sadness, and finally, a sense of closure. I had won the divorce settlement, exposing Peter's hidden assets and securing my financial future. But the victory had come at a cost. The scandal had rocked our community, and Peter's career had crumbled in the aftermath. As I scrolled through the article, my phone rang. It was Kate. "Hannah, have you seen the news?" she asked, her voice a mix of concern and excitement. "I just did," I replied, surprised by the calmness in my voice. "How are you feeling about it?" Kate paused. "I'm more concerned about how you're feeling. Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, considering her question. "You know what, Kate? I really am. For the first time in years, I feel free." We chatted for a few more minutes before I had to get ready for work. Yes, work. In the months following the divorce, I had rediscovered my passion for interior design, a dream I had set aside when I married Peter. Now I was apprenticing at a local firm, learning the ropes and building a new career. As I walked to the office, I passed the coffee shop where Peter and I used to have our Sunday brunches. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face, Amber, Peter's former mistress. Her baby bump had given way to a stroller. Our eyes met, and after a moment's hesitation, she gave me a small, sad smile. I nodded in return, feeling a surprising lack of bitterness. We had both been victims of Peter's deception, in our own ways. At the office, my colleague Sandra greeted me with a knowing look. "Quite the headlines today, huh?" she said, handing me a stack of fabric swatches. I nodded, focusing on the task at hand. "Life has a way of balancing the scales," I replied, surprised by the wisdom in my own words. As the day progressed, I found myself reflecting on the journey of the past year. The pain of betrayal, the fear of an uncertain future, the struggle to reclaim my identity. It had all led me here, to this moment of strength and self-discovery. That evening, as I walked home, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Peter. My heart raced as I opened it. "Hannah, I know I have no right to ask, but I need help. Can we talk?" I stared at the message, memories of our life together flashing through my mind. The young, ambitious lawyer I had fallen in love with, the man who had betrayed and belittled me, the broken figure in the courtroom, watching his lies unravel. Taking a deep breath, I typed my response. "I'm sorry, Peter, but that chapter of our lives is closed. I wish you well, but I can't be the one to help you anymore." As I hit send, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The last tie to my old life had been severed. I was no longer Peter's wife, no longer the woman who would sacrifice her own needs for his ambitions. I was Hannah, strong, independent, and finally, truly free. Entering my apartment, I was greeted by the vision board I had created, filled with dreams and goals for my new life. Travel plans, design projects, even a tentative sketch for a book I hoped to write someday. Each item represented a piece of myself I was reclaiming and nurturing. As I settled onto my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sun set over the city, I felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was excited about the journey. "Here's to new beginnings," I whispered to myself, raising my glass to the fading light. The Hannah who had started this journey would never have believed where it would lead. But the woman I had become, she was ready for anything life might bring. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the quiet of my kitchen, startling me so badly I nearly dropped my mug of chamomile tea. It was 11:30 p.m., far too late for a social call. My stomach clenched as I fumbled to answer. "Clara, it's about Peter. There's been an accident." My brother's name, coupled with accident, sent ice through my veins. "What happened? Is he okay?" "He's alive, but it's bad. They've taken him to Mercy General. Can you get there?" I was already grabbing my keys. "I'm on my way." The drive to the hospital was a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. Peter and I had always been close, despite our occasional squabbles. He was my rock, my confidant. The thought of losing him was unbearable. At the hospital, I found Emily, my sister-in-law, pacing in the waiting room. Her mascara had left dark streaks down her cheeks. "Clara, thank God you're here," she said, throwing her arms around me. I hugged her back, pushing down my own panic. "What happened?" Emily pulled away, wiping her eyes. "He fell down the stairs at home. They think he might have had a stroke first, but they're not sure. He's in surgery now." My mind reeled. Peter was only 41, far too young for a stroke. "Have you called Mom and Dad?" Emily nodded. "They're on their way, but it'll take them a few hours to get here from Florida." A doctor approached us then, his face grave. "Mrs. Lawson, I'm Dr. Reeves. Your husband is out of surgery, but he's in critical condition. We've induced a coma to help reduce brain swelling." Emily gasped, and I grabbed her hand. "Can we see him?" I asked. Dr. Reeves nodded. "Briefly. Follow me." Peter looked small and fragile in the hospital bed, tubes and wires snaking from his body. I felt tears welling up as I took his hand. "Oh, Pete," I whispered. "What happened to you?" Emily stood on the other side of the bed, her face a mask of worry. "The kids are with my sister," she said softly. "I should probably call and update her." I nodded, not taking my eyes off Peter. "Go ahead. I'll stay with him." As soon as Emily left the room, I leaned in close to my brother. "Pete, if you can hear me, you need to fight. We need you here." My eyes fell on Peter's jacket, draped over a chair nearby. A folded piece of paper was peeking out of the pocket. Curiosity got the better of me, and I reached for it. The note was in Peter's handwriting, but the words made no sense. "Clara, if anything happens to me, look in the attic. The truth is hidden there. Be careful who you trust." My heart raced as I read the cryptic message. What truth? And why would Peter write such a thing? I quickly folded the note and slipped it into my own pocket just as Emily returned. "Any change?" she asked hopefully. I shook my head, guilt gnawing at me for hiding the note. "No, he's still the same." Emily sighed, sinking into a chair. "I just don't understand how this could have happened. He was fine when I left for my book club meeting." Something in her tone made me pause. Was that a hint of defensiveness? Before I could ponder it further, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my husband, Alex. "Everything okay? You left without saying anything." I felt a pang of guilt. In my rush to get to the hospital, I hadn't even told Alex where I was going. "At the hospital." I texted back. "Peter had an accident. It's bad." His reply was immediate. "On my way." As I put my phone away, I caught Emily watching me with an odd expression. It was gone in an instant, replaced by worry for Peter. But as I settled in for a long night at the hospital, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Peter's mysterious note burned in my pocket, a harbinger of secrets yet to be revealed. What truth was hidden in the attic? And more importantly, who couldn't I trust? The steady beep of Peter's heart monitor filled the hospital room as I sat by his bedside, my mind drifting to happier times. I remembered summers at our grandparents' lake house, Peter and I chasing fireflies as the sun dipped below the horizon. Those carefree days seemed a lifetime ago now. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Emily's voice startled me from my reverie. I forced a smile. "Just remembering better days." Emily nodded, her eyes never quite meeting mine. "Peter always said you two were inseparable as kids." "We were," I agreed, studying her face. Something about her demeanor felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The weight of Peter's note in my pocket seemed to grow heavier. Just then, Alex arrived, looking harried. "Clara, I came as soon as I could. How is he?" I filled him in on Peter's condition, watching as he and Emily exchanged a look I couldn't quite decipher. A seed of doubt took root in my mind. "Emily," I said, keeping my voice casual, "I was thinking of stopping by your house to pick up some things for Peter. Maybe look for any important papers he might need." A flicker of panic crossed her face before she composed herself. "Oh, I don't think that's necessary. I can handle it." Alex jumped in. "I'm sure Emily's got it under control, Clara. No need to worry about that now." Their eagerness to keep me away from the house only fueled my suspicions. I smiled tightly. Of course, just trying to help. As the night wore on, I found myself watching Emily more closely. The ways she fidgeted with her wedding ring, her hushed conversations with Alex in the hallway, it all felt wrong somehow. When Emily stepped out to make a call, I turned to Alex. "Don't you think Emily's acting strange?" He frowned. "She's worried about her husband, Clara. We all are." "It's more than that," I insisted. "And why are you two so adamant about me not going to their house?" Alex's expression hardened. "What are you implying?" Before I could respond, my parents burst into the room, faces etched with worry. The conversation with Alex would have to wait. As Mom fussed over Peter and Dad spoke with the doctors, I slipped out to get some air. In the quiet hospital garden, I pulled out Peter's note, reading it again. "The truth is hidden there. Be careful who you trust." Who couldn't I trust? Emily? Alex? The thought of my husband being involved in whatever this was made my stomach churn. Lost in thought, I didn't notice Emily approach until she spoke. "What's that?" I quickly pocketed the note. "Nothing important." Emily's eyes narrowed. "You know, Clara, I've always admired how close you and Peter are, but sometimes I wonder if you're a little too involved in our lives." Her words carried a subtle threat that sent a chill down my spine. "He's my brother, Emily. Of course I'm involved." "Just remember," she said, her voice low, "family can be complicated. Sometimes it's best not to dig too deep." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me stunned. The seed of doubt blossomed into full-blown suspicion. Back in Peter's room, I watched as Emily played the role of devoted wife, my parents none the wiser. Alex caught my eye, his expression unreadable. In that moment, I made a decision. I had to know what was in that attic, no matter the cost. Peter's life might depend on it. As everyone fussed over Peter, I slipped out, determination fueling my steps. I'd go to their house now while Emily was distracted. In the parking lot, I fumbled for my keys, my heart racing. A hand on my shoulder made me jump. "Going somewhere?" Alex asked, his voice tight with suspicion. I turned to face him, my resolve strengthening. "I'm going to find out what's really going on, Alex. Are you going to stop me?" His answer would determine everything. Alex's grip on my shoulder tightened. Clara, you're not thinking straight. Let's go back inside. I shrugged him off, anger bubbling up inside me. No, Alex, I'm thinking clearer than I have in years. What's going on? Why are you and Emily so determined to keep me away from Peter's house? His face hardened. You're being paranoid. Emily's worried about her husband and you're seeing conspiracies everywhere. Am I? I pulled out Peter's note. Then explain this. Alex's eyes widened as he read it. Where did you get that? From Peter's jacket. Now, are you going to tell me what's really happening, or do I need to find out for myself? He ran a hand through his hair, looking conflicted. Clara, please, just let this go, for all our sakes. His evasiveness only fueled my determination. I can't believe this. You're involved, aren't you? What are you and Emily hiding? Keep your voice down, Alex hissed, glancing around the parking lot. You don't understand what you're getting into. I laughed bitterly. Then explain it to me, Alex, because right now it looks like my husband and my sister-in-law are involved in something that put my brother in the hospital. Alex's face flushed with anger. You want to know the truth? Fine. Emily and we've been seeing each other. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. What? It's been going on for a while, he continued, his voice low. Peter found out. That's why he wrote that note. He was going to tell you. But then he conveniently had an accident, I finished, feeling sick. Alex's eyes widened. No, we had nothing to do with that. It was just a terrible coincidence. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. How can I believe anything you say now? Clara, please. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me, I spat. How could you do this? To me, to Peter? It wasn't supposed to happen, Alex said, his voice pleading. We never meant to hurt anyone. Well, congratulations, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You've succeeded spectacularly. Just then, Emily appeared at the hospital entrance. Her eyes darted between us, realization dawning on her face. What's going on? She asked, approaching cautiously. I turned to her, fury coursing through my veins. Why don't you ask your lover? Emily paled. Clara, I can explain. Save it. I cut her off. I don't want to hear your excuses. What I want to know is what really happened to my brother. Emily's eyes flashed with panic. It was an accident. You can't possibly think. I don't know what to think anymore, I interrupted, but I'm going to find out the truth, with or without your help. Alex stepped between us. Clara, you're upset. Let's not do anything rash. I laughed humorlessly. Rash? Like having an affair with your wife's sister-in-law? Or covering up whatever happened to Peter? We're not covering anything up, Emily insisted. Peter fell. That's all there is to it. But the fear in her eyes told a different story. I turned to Alex, my heart breaking. I want a separation. I can't even look at you right now. His face crumpled. Clara, please. We can work this out. Work what out? I asked, my voice rising. The fact that you've been lying to me for God knows how long? That you're somehow involved in whatever happened to my brother? You're jumping to conclusions, Alex said, his own anger flaring. If this is how little you trust me, maybe a separation is a good idea. His words hit me like a physical blow. Fine, I said, my voice cold. I'll be staying at Peter's house. Someone needs to look after his kids while their mother is otherwise occupied. Emily flinched at the barb. Clara, don't do this. Think of the family. I am thinking of the family, I retorted. The family you two seem intent on destroying. With that, I turned and walked to my car, ignoring their calls. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of them in my rearview mirror standing close together, united in their deceit. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I headed towards Peter's house, determined to uncover the truth hidden in the attic. Whatever secrets lay there, I was ready to face them, no matter the cost. The key trembled in my hand as I unlocked Peter's front door. The house was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. I flicked on the lights, half expecting Emily or Alex to jump out and stop me. But I was alone, surrounded by the remnants of my brother's life. I made my way upstairs, Peter's note burning a hole in my pocket. The attic door loomed before me, a portal to truths I both craved and feared. With a deep breath, I turned the handle and stepped into the musty darkness. Fumbling for the light switch, I illuminated a cluttered space filled with boxes and forgotten memories. Where to start? I began rifling through the nearest stack, my heart pounding with each document I uncovered. Hours passed as I sifted through years of accumulated papers. Just as frustration threatened to overwhelm me, a small lockbox caught my eye. It was tucked behind an old suitcase, almost hidden from view. With shaking hands, I pried it open, gasping at its contents. Inside were photos, dozens of them, of Emily with Alex. The timestamps spanned years, long before Peter's accident. My stomach churned as I realized the depth of their deception, but it was the document beneath the photos that made my blood run cold. A life insurance policy for Peter, taken out just months ago, with Emily as the sole beneficiary. The amount was staggering. "Oh God," I whispered, the pieces falling into place. This wasn't just an affair, it was something far more sinister. The sound of a car pulling up jolted me from my horrified trance. Peering out the attic window, I saw Emily's car in the driveway. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to replace the lockbox and erase any signs of my presence. I had just made it to the bottom of the attic stairs when the front door opened. Emily's voice called out, "Clara, are you here?" Forcing calm into my voice, I replied, "Up here. Just checking on some things for Peter." Emily appeared at the foot of the stairs, her face a mask of concern. "You shouldn't be here alone. Why don't you come back to the hospital?" I descended slowly, my mind racing. "I'm fine, Emily. Just needed some time to process everything." Her eyes darted to the attic door behind me. "Find anything interesting up there?" The loaded question hung in the air between us. I met her gaze steadily. Nothing worth mentioning. Yet. A flicker of something, fear, crossed her face before she composed herself. "Well, I'm here to pick up some things for Peter and to check on the kids. They're with my sister, but I thought I'd grab some of their favorite toys." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As Emily busied herself gathering items, I retreated to the living room, my mind whirling with the implications of what I discovered. My phone buzzed, a text from Alex. "We need to talk. Please come home." Home. The word felt hollow now, tainted by lies and betrayal. I typed back a curt reply, "Nothing to discuss. I'm staying at Peter's." Emily's voice startled me. "Everything okay?" I looked up to find her watching me intently. "Fine," I lied. "Just updating Alex on the situation." She nodded, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "Clara, I know things are strained right now, but we're still family. If you need anything." The irony of her words nearly choked me. "What I need," I said carefully, "is for my brother to wake up and tell me what really happened that night." Emily paled slightly. "We all want that, but the doctors say we need to be patient." As she turned to leave, a sudden resolve crystallized within me. I couldn't confront her now, not without more evidence. But I also couldn't let her and Alex continue their charade unchallenged. "Emily," I called out, causing her to pause at the door, "I'll be staying here to look after the kids. I'm sure you understand." Our eyes locked, an unspoken battle of wills. Finally, she nodded. "Of course, that's very kind of you." As her car pulled away, I sank onto the couch, the weight of my discoveries pressing down on me. I knew what I had to do next, but the path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty. With trembling fingers, I dialed a number I never thought I'd use. "Detective Johnson, it's Clara Lawson. I need to report a possible attempted murder." The days blurred together as I settled into a routine at Peter's house, caring for my niece and nephew while juggling hospital visits and clandestine meetings with Detective Johnson. The kids, Lily and Max, were a welcome distraction from the turmoil in my life, their innocence a stark contrast to the web of lies I was unraveling. One afternoon, as I helped Lily with her homework, my phone buzzed with a text from the detective. "New information. Meet ASAP." My heart raced as I arranged for a neighbor to watch the kids. At the local diner, Detective Johnson slid a file across the table. "We've been looking into Emily's financials," he said in a low voice. "There's something you need to see." I flipped open the folder, my eyes widening at the contents. Bank statements showed large transfers from Emily's account to an offshore entity, starting just weeks before Peter's accident. "This doesn't prove anything," I whispered. Though hope flared in my chest, the detective leaned in. "No, but it's suspicious. We're also looking into Alex's involvement. His alibi for the night of the accident is shaky at best." As I left the diner, my mind reeled with possibilities. I was so distracted that I almost missed the familiar car parked down the street, Alex's car. Anger and betrayal surged through me as I stormed over, rapping on the window. Alex jumped, then reluctantly rolled it down. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. He had the decency to look ashamed. I was worried about you, Clara. You haven't been returning my calls." "So you decided to stalk me instead?" Alex sighed. "I saw you with that man. Who is he?" I laughed bitterly. "Now you're concerned about who I'm meeting. That's rich coming from you." His face hardened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know, Alex. About the affair, about the money. What I don't know is how deeply you're involved in what happened to Peter." The color drained from his face. "Clara, you've got it all wrong. Let me explain." But I was already walking away, my heart pounding. I couldn't bear to hear more lies. Back at Peter's house, I found Emily waiting on the porch, the kids playing in the yard. "We need to talk," she said, her voice tight. I steeled myself, gesturing for her to come inside. In the kitchen, Emily paced nervously. "I know you've been digging," she began, "but you don't understand the whole picture." I crossed my arms. "Then enlighten me." Emily took a deep breath. "Peter and our marriage wasn't what it seemed. He had debts, Clara, dangerous ones. The money you found? It was to pay them off, to keep us safe." I stared at her, disbelief warring with a flicker of doubt. "And the affair with Alex?" She flinched. "A mistake, one I deeply regret, but it has nothing to do with what happened to Peter." "So you expect me to believe it's all just a coincidence? The affair, the money, Peter's accident?" Emily's filled with tears. "I know how it looks, but I swear, I had nothing to do with Peter's fall. I loved him, despite everything." As she spoke, I noticed something poking out of her purse, the corner of what looked like the lockbox I'd found in the attic. In that moment, everything crystallized. Emily wasn't here to explain. She was here to cover her tracks. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking with fury. Emily blinked, taken aback. "Clara, please. Get out now, or I swear I'll call the police this instant." She hesitated, then grabbed her purse and fled. As the door slammed behind her, I sank to the floor, overwhelmed by the weight of betrayal and lies. My phone buzzed. Another text from Detective Johnson. "Breakthrough in the case. Need to meet immediately." I stared at the message, knowing that my next move would change everything. The truth was within reach, but at what cost? With trembling fingers, I typed my reply. "I'm ready. Let's end this." As I hit send, I knew there was no turning back. Whatever came next, I was prepared to face it head-on, for Peter, for the kids, and for the truth that had eluded us for far too long. The world seemed to spin around me as I sat in Detective Johnson's office, staring at the evidence laid out before us. Photos, financial records, and witness statements painted a damning picture of Emily and Alex's involvement in Peter's accident. "We have enough to bring them in for questioning," Johnson said, his voice grave. "But we need your statement to tie it all together." I nodded, my throat tight. "I'm ready." As I recounted everything I'd discovered, from the mysterious note to the hidden lockbox, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The truth was finally coming to light, but at what cost to my family? Just as I finished my statement, my phone buzzed. It was a text from the hospital. "Peter's showing signs of waking up. Come immediately." My heart leapt. "I have to go," I told Johnson, already halfway out the door. At the hospital, I found my mother, Linda, already there, her face etched with worry and hope. "Clara, thank goodness you're here," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. We watched through the window as doctors swarmed around Peter's bed. His fingers twitched, then his eyelids fluttered. It was happening. He was waking up. As we waited anxiously, I filled Mom in on everything that had happened. Her face paled, then hardened with resolve. "Oh, Clara," she said, squeezing my hand. "You've been carrying this burden alone for too long, but not anymore. We'll face this together." Her words washed over me like a balm, easing some of the loneliness I'd been feeling. But our moment of connection was shattered by the arrival of Emily and Alex, bursting into the waiting room. "What's going on?" Emily demanded, her eyes darting between us and Peter's room. Before I could respond, Detective Johnson appeared behind them, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. "Emily Lawson, Alexander Lawson, you're under arrest for the attempted murder of Peter Lawson and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud." The next few minutes were chaos. Emily screamed denials while Alex went pale and silent. As the officers led them away, Emily's eyes locked on mine, filled with a mixture of hatred and fear. "This isn't over, Clara," she hissed. You have no idea what you've done. I stood my ground, Mom's hand firm in mine. No, Emily, you have no idea what you've done. To this family, to Peter, to those kids. As they disappeared down the hallway, a doctor emerged from Peter's room. He's awake and asking for Clara. With shaking legs, I entered the room. Peter's eyes were open, though unfocused. When he saw me, a weak smile crossed his face. Clara, he whispered, you found it. I leaned in close. Found what, Pete? His voice was barely audible. The truth, in the attic. But there's more. Danger. Before he could finish, his eyes rolled back and the monitors started blaring. Doctors and nurses rushed in, pushing me aside as they worked to stabilize him. I stumbled back into the hallway, my mind reeling. What more could there be? What danger was Peter trying to warn me about? Mom was there, steadying me. What happened? What did he say? I opened my mouth to respond, but movement at the end of the hall caught my eye. A figure in a hoodie was watching us, their face hidden in shadow. As our eyes met, they turned and ran. Without thinking, I took off after them, ignoring Mom's calls. I chased the figure down flights of stairs and out into the parking lot, my heart pounding. Just as I thought I'd lost them, a hand grabbed my arm, yanking me behind a parked van. I found myself face to face with a woman I'd never seen before, her eyes wild with fear. Are you Clara? She asked urgently. I nodded, too out of breath to speak. Listen carefully, she said, glancing around nervously. Emily and Alex aren't working alone. There's a bigger conspiracy at play, and you're in danger. We don't have much time. As she spoke, I saw a black SUV pull into the lot, its tinted windows hiding the occupants. The woman's grip on my arm tightened. You have a choice to make, Clara. Run now and stay safe, or dive deeper and risk everything to uncover the whole truth. What's it going to be? My heart pounded as I made my split-second decision. I'm in. Tell me everything. The woman, who introduced herself as Sarah, quickly ushered me into her car. As we sped away from the hospital, she filled me in on a conspiracy that made my head spin. Emily and Alex were just pawns in a larger game involving corporate espionage and money laundering. Peter had stumbled upon evidence that could bring down an entire criminal network. That's why they tried to silence him, Sarah explained. And now they're after you. We arrived at a safe house where Sarah showed me files that corroborated her story. My mind reeled as I recognized names of family, friends, and business associates entangled in this web of deceit. Just then, my phone rang. It was Mom. Clara, where are you? Emily's been released on bail and she's here at the house. She's demanding to see you. My blood ran cold. Mom, listen carefully. You need to get out of there now. Go to Aunt Marge's and wait for my call. Clara, what's going on? You're scaring me. Please, Mom, trust me. I'll explain everything soon. After ensuring Mom was safe, Sarah and I formulated a plan. We needed to retrieve the final piece of evidence from Peter's attic. Evidence he had hinted at before losing consciousness again. As we approached Peter's house, I saw Emily's car in the driveway. Sarah handed me a small recording device. Be careful. Get her to talk, but don't let on what you know. With trembling hands, I entered the house. Emily was in the living room, pacing like a caged animal. When she saw me, her eyes flashed with a mixture of relief and anger. Clara, thank God, you have to help me. These accusations are insane. You know I would never hurt Peter. I steeled myself, remembering Sarah's advice. Then explain the money transfers, Emily. Explain the affair with Alex. Her face crumpled. It's not what you think. We were being blackmailed. There are people, powerful people, who... Suddenly the front door burst open. Alex stormed in, his face a mask of fury. Emily, shut up. You have no idea what you're dealing with. I backed away, my heart racing. Alex, what are you doing here? His eyes darted between Emily and me. Cleaning up this mess. I'm sorry, Clara, but you've left me no choice. As he reached into his jacket, I saw the glint of a gun. Time seemed to slow down. I lunged for the nearest object, a heavy vase, and hurled it at him. The gun went off, the bullet splintering the wood beside my head. Emily screamed, diving for cover. I scrambled towards the stairs, Alex's footsteps thundering behind me. I reached the attic door, fumbling with the lock as another shot rang out. Finally inside, I frantically searched for Peter's hidden evidence. Where was it? The sound of Alex ascending the stairs spurred me on. Just as my hand closed around a small USB drive tucked behind a loose floorboard, the attic door flew open. Alex stood there, gun trained on me, his eyes cold. Hand it over, Clara. Now. I clutched the drive to my chest. Why, Alex? How could you be involved in this? His laugh was hollow. You have no idea how deep this goes. The money, the power, it's beyond anything you can imagine. As he stepped closer, I heard sirens in the distance. Alex's head whipped towards the sound, momentarily distracted. It was now or never. I charged at him, catching him off guard. We grappled for the gun, our struggle bringing us dangerously close to the attic window. With a final, desperate shove, I felt Alex lose his balance. Time seemed to stand still as I watched him fall, his eyes wide with shock. The sickening thud that followed would haunt me forever. Shaking uncontrollably, I made my way downstairs to find Sarah and the police bursting in. Emily was nowhere to be seen. As the officers swarmed the house, Sarah approached me. It's over, Clara. You did it. But as I handed over the USB drive, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The cost had been too high, the revelations too earth-shattering. As I watched the chaos unfold around me, one question burned in my mind. Where do we go from here? The courtroom buzzed with tension as I took the stand, my mother's encouraging nod from the gallery steeling my resolve. This was it, the moment of truth that would expose the web of lies and deceit that had nearly destroyed our family. As the prosecutor guided me through my testimony, I recounted every shocking detail. The affair, the conspiracy, the attempt on Peter's life. With each revelation, I watched Emily's face contort with a mixture of rage and desperation. "And what did you find on the USB drive, Miss Lawson?" the prosecutor asked. I took a deep breath. Financial records proving that Emily and Alex were part of a larger criminal organization. They were laundering money through Peter's company, and when he discovered it, they tried to silence him. Emily leapt to her feet. "She's lying. Clara's always been jealous of me, of my relationship with Peter." The judge called for order as Emily's outburst echoed through the courtroom. As she was restrained, our eyes met. In that moment, I saw not just anger, but fear. The fear of a cornered animal. After I stepped down, Mom took the stand. Her testimony about the changes she'd observed in Peter and Emily's relationship and the suspicious behavior leading up to the accident further solidified our case. As the trial concluded and we awaited the verdict, Mom squeezed my hand. "No matter what happens, Clara, I'm proud of you. We've done the right thing." The jury's decision was swift and unanimous, guilty on all counts. As Emily was led away, her mask of innocence finally crumbled. "You'll regret this, Clara," she screamed. "You have no idea what you've done." In the days that followed, the full extent of the conspiracy came to light. Respected community members were arrested, businesses were shuttered, and our quiet town was left reeling from the scandal. Through it all, Mom and I stood strong, supporting each other and helping Peter through his recovery. His memory of the accident was still hazy, but with each passing day, he grew stronger. One evening as we sat on the porch of our childhood home, Peter turned to me. "Clara, I can't thank you enough for what you've done. You saved my life and you saved our family." I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. We saved each other, Pete. That's what family does. Mom joined us carrying a tray of lemonade. "My brave children," she said, her eyes misty. "I always knew you were fighters, but you've shown more strength than I ever imagined." As we sat there watching the sunset, I reflected on the tumultuous journey we'd been through. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, it had all led to this moment of peace and unity. "What happens now?" Peter asked, voicing the question we'd all been pondering. I took a sip of lemonade, considering. "We rebuild, we heal, and we move forward together." Mom nodded, her face resolute. "And we remember the lessons we've learned. Trust your instincts, stand up for what's right, and never underestimate the power of family." In that moment, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Despite everything we'd been through, our family had emerged stronger, our bonds unbreakable. As the stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, I made a silent vow. We would face whatever challenges came our way with the same courage and determination that had brought us through this ordeal. The road ahead might be uncertain, but one thing was clear. Together, we could weather any storm. "To family," I said, raising my glass. "To family?" Mom and Peter echoed, their voices filled with love and hope. As we clinked our glasses together, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The secrets were out, the truth had prevailed, and our family stood united. Whatever the future held, we would face it head-on, stronger and wiser than ever before. The end of this chapter marked not just the conclusion of a harrowing ordeal, but the beginning of a new journey, one of healing, growth, and unshakable family bonds. As the night deepened around us, I knew that the strength we'd found in each other would guide us through whatever lay ahead. Our family's story was far from over. It was just beginning anew.